Welcome to another episode of Talking Nerdy in the Bedroom with KJ. And it's a special episode. Again, this is now God, I don't know how many times we've done this. It feels like we've done it a lot, but it's been over 2.5 years. But yeah, so I'm back with some GWF crew at the moment, and should be crews, plural? No, that's wrong. It's fine. But we'll have some other people maybe joining us later. But right now it is Dennis. Hi, Dennis.
Hi. How you doing?
So, grabbing you back all the way from your Canada, right? That's where you're living?
Right now, yes.
Yes. Right now, that sounds like you're moving.
No plan to. I have no money to move. Put it that way.
That's fair. I actually will be hitting up Buffalo, the GWF home, in next week. I leave a week from today to go visit a buddy and go to a football game and some escape rooms, and then heading to Canada. It feels like I'm stalking you. I promise you I'm not. But you know, it sounds like it. If you was like, hey, used to live here, now he lives in Canada. I'm like, hey, I'm going to Buffalo and Canada.
You could try and find me, but
I don't think it would be that difficult.
Probably not. I'd probably be standing there waving.
But no, so we're doing we're going to a football game with a buddy of ours that moved to Buffalo, and then we're heading up to Montreal and gonna do some escape rooms up in Montreal, which excited for because some of them are supposed to be some of the best in the world, like off of this website that has graded like 20,000 rooms. It's in the top 8, which is crazy. And they apparently have one of the world's largest escape rooms, if not the largest, which is basically, I'm assuming you've played or watched the Resident Evil movies.
I know of Resident Evil, yes.
Okay, so you know how they have Umbrella Corp?
Yes.
So their escape room is called Rain Corp. And it's basically that, just without getting sued. And that's what the whole idea behind it is. And it's supposed to be gigantic in this big, huge warehouse place where you're going to be doing zombie-related escape room stuff.
Wow. Well, good luck with that. Don't get stuck, I guess. You know.
Don't think we'll get stuck, but who knows? Like, I don't know how Canada does their room compared to America. I've done 100 escape rooms and obviously used to own one. So, like, I'm pretty familiar with them. But yeah, these ones up in Canada look crazy expensive and crazy elaborate.
Just don't become part of the attraction. I guess that's.
Hey, I mean, what else do I got going on? I got the podcast. Maybe I'll just take the podcast from the escape room and be like, hey, someone needs to find me. Somebody help, please.
Just don't get caught working in Canada, because then that's a whole visa situation that you just don't want to be part of.
Got it. Will not do that.
Just don't tell the border guards you're working.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I'm there for pleasure. It's fine. I'm gonna go visit Dennis for pleasure. That's what I'm gonna tell them.
It probably didn't come out the way it should have.
It came out exactly the way I intended it to.
All right.
All right. So speaking of all right, let's move on to all right. So obviously we know each other now and have been doing, I want to say we've been doing at least 2 of these a year for the last 2.5 years or so, of talking about, reminiscing about GWF, reminiscing about the old times of grading homework, so to speak. And then we obviously move on to like the current state of wrestling, mostly WWE. And it's especially interesting to me if I look back at the earliest podcast I did with you, and we're talking about wrestling. It's like, I don't really watch it. I kind of know what's going on. To then you now, where it seems like, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but you just went to an event, when was the last time you went to an event before this one?
There was an NXT event that was downtown Buffalo, but not the big arena. It was kind of one of the shows, and we kind of all went because it was just a show to get the guys together. So that was probably 2019-ish.
So like 5 years.
Yeah.
And that was more or less just to get the guys together. Was this trip hey, get the guys together, or was this, hey, get the guys together and I kind of want to see what the product is?
This was a family trip.
Oh, this was family, not even
is
the guys.
which is an extremely different dynamic to now say what was and what is now merging into a weird state. We have become a SmackDown family. So here we
Did
are.
you did you think that would ever happen? Is it because the product changed and now it's more interesting for you and your family, or did you always think this would eventually happen throughout later in life as like the kids got older?
If I would have put money on it, it would have been the other way of that. You know what? The guys, we would chat wrestling, we would watch the big events, life would go on. Never did I think my wife and daughter would be the one suggesting that we should go to a show because um I can't say it's because of the product. I mean, it is to a degree. It's honestly, like my wife had watched it when she was a kid because she had older brothers, so they watched. Um, and then now everybody knows The Rock. It's always about The Rock, and because The Rock was on WrestleMania this year, they watched WrestleMania. And my daughter has friends at school; they watch wrestling, so she wanted to see what wrestling was. And then my wife started watching it more because The Rock was there. I wanted to see it. And then she got sucked into the whole Cody Rhodes thing and Seth Rollins thing. And it was like, now we're pretty much watching SmackDown every week because we got to see what happens next.
Am I ruining watching SmackDown tonight?
No, I was actually going to put it on. Nobody else is here, but normally we watch it a day later just to skip the commercials. It's really
Gotcha. Yeah, I do. I try to do the same. I hate commercials, especially in this day and age, which is why I'm excited for when Raw goes to Netflix. I'm sure there'll be some type of commercials there, like, but I don't think it'll be the same, or at least maybe it will, because I look at Amazon that does Thursday Night Football, and they're basically it's like watching on regular TV. They're ads
right.
all throughout. So maybe that's what'll happen with WWE. But I'm more looking forward to if they don't do that, we just get their straight wrestling product. Although that might be hard from a production standpoint.
Yeah, I think you need those breaks. And I think you see that when you go to shows because everybody runs out and they're switching up sets or something's going on. You need those lulls so that stuff can be prepped, I guess. So the pyro
Sure.
guys got to slide those things out,
Did you realize when you went? Because I know you used to go probably years ago. Because I think we all did at one point or another. They never used to change out, and this is I think because of COVID, but they never used to change out the ring mat. So if there was blood, sweat, whatever all over it, now between every match, they are changing out the ring mat. That is one of the things the crew does, and they have it down to a science. But they run out there, they take it off, and then they move it. And what I've realized it's actually so they've turned a negative kind of thing into a positive because they actually sell pieces of that mat. And I actually have two pieces from WrestleMania that I went to from the match of Roman Rock versus Cody and Seth. Like I have a piece of that mat with the commemorative plate, and then I have it from when Damian Priest cashed in. So the Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre match, but then that obviously ended with the cash in and with CM Punk screwing over Drew McIntyre, blowing that feud out of the water because it's amazing. But so I have that because one from night one from night two, and it was just yeah, I wanted to have one from each, but to basically take like, oh, we got to do this because of either regulations or because it's more sanitary and go, hey, you know what we can do with all this stuff? We can sell it for a good amount. I mean, they weren't the most expensive things in the world, but they're, I mean, if they're not that big of a piece of a mat, so you could probably sell, I don't know, like 400 of them. And even if you're selling them for $50 a piece, that's $2,000 off a mat that you just usually will either need to wash or dispose of.
Right. Oh yeah, that's got to do something with it, right? There's got to be some market for it.
Yeah, and especially on like the big events. I don't know if they do it. I doubt they do it for Raw and SmackDown unless something major happened, like a title change or
Sure.
a cash in or something like that. But for most of the pay-per-views or premium live events now, they definitely have done that. I've seen a bunch when I was on WWE Shop looking for them and seeing like all the other pay-per-views that they've done. Especially WrestleMania is a little bit different. Almost every match had one, but a lot of like the main events of the PLEs or the co-main events would have theirs, like the major title matches.
Yeah, I was watching the guys came out. That was one thing that caught me because I saw the guys come out and they were untying the mat, like the rope that holds it down. I was like, huh. And then just watching them, and they're all in lockstep. They got it down. They all know their place, and it's like, huh, it's just a thing to watch, and just those little things you do pick up on. It's just kind of wild.
Yeah, especially if you been before, that wasn't a thing. Like they would do some stuff to the ring because they have to set up for whatever the next segment is or whatever the next match is to make sure. Like when Undertaker used to come out with the motorcycle, so they got to move the ring steps out of the way so he can drive it around. Set up for Kane's pyro or whatever it needs to be. They always do that stuff, but this is every match, and yeah, definitely lockstep, got it out. There's a couple times where they had like a backstage segment when I was watching live and didn't care about the segment. I was more interested in what they're setting up down there, ready for the next thing, including taking out the ring thing. Then there was also the night after WrestleMania, so on Raw, when Cody won the title, they started off, I think, the night with Cody in the ring, and he talked to Triple H for a while before The Rock came out, and they did that whole thing. And he did this video package, but right before Raw started, there was, I don't know, like 50 crew members all around, like setting up TVs in a certain angle so that everybody could watch, even though there was a big, because they didn't have the big Titantron like they normally have because they were trying to have more seats. So like watching them do that and the production that they're able to do is very impressive in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's fun to watch that side, and I think it's funny because we like when I remember watching wrestling throughout forever, right? And that's where the GWF videos came from. That's why I did the Flash stuff like that, because that side of the house always interested me. Like, oh, the multimedia aspect, the theme music, the videos that go, entrance themes that go along with them. When they actually called them Titantrons before, now they're just names and backgrounds, right? It's like, yeah, the fun has been taken out of it. But that part of it always kind of got me. It was like, oh, it's the production side. I don't want to say anybody can put on a good wrestling match, but let's face it, you can put on a good wrestling match, but you got to put on a good show. And those elements really tie it together. I think, I had my daughter sitting next to me, and my wife's kind of sat behind us because how our seats were configured. I was telling her, and after the show, because I could see her reaction, I could see her reaction. We were talking like it's not just wrestling; it's like going to a concert with a ballet, with also a movie. It's all these things because you're watching those promo segments between matches. You're watching the semi commercials, the recap packages, whatever you want to call them. You're watching those. You're watching the wrestling matches. You're watching the interviews. You're hearing the music, and it's all together. It really makes the event. It's without one of those pieces, it might not feel the same. And then you take, people don't look away from those. And then you look at like, oh yeah, but there's a ring crew doing all this other stuff. Like there's so much going on. It's hard to take it all in if you're just going to a show one time.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons that WWE has succeeded so much because even though I hate the word entertainment and I hate the fact that for a while they couldn't use the word wrestling, which was stupid, but it is entertainment. It is a spectacle. You don't just go there to watch people wrestle in the ring. That is part of it, and it should be probably the biggest part of it. But there are other elements that get you hooked and sucked in. And for years, when WWE, for lack of a better word, sucked, and they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. Anytime they had anything going for them that was good, they just then went in the opposite direction. The one thing that they always seemed to do right was those recap packages. Like before a pay-per-view, right before a match, that's what you see. And there are some times where I'm like, God, if that's all this feud was, this could be feud of the year, but it's not. They cut out all that extra garbage stuff, all the stuff that doesn't matter, all the stuff that just didn't play well on TV, and they get you like the greatest hits part. And it very much reminds me of when we were younger, going through the Attitude Era and seeing like the recap packages of The Rock and Austin, or Austin and The Undertaker, or Triple H and The Rock, or Kurt Angle and yada yada. And you would just see them, and it gets you hyped to then go into the match. Which even with the old style of it wasn't that good, to now where they kind of meet, where the production value is still very good for those, and then the matches live up to it. And if you can balance that correctly, like especially with what they did at WrestleMania and Raw, like everything flowed very well. It kept the momentum going up, rather than like, oh, that was a great video package, oh, this match sucked, or that was a terrible video package, but at least the match was good. You know, they have this way of doing it to give you all that. I like that you said like a concert, because very much so, because not even the fact when they do the concert aspect of it where they have musicians perform, but just in general, like with the theme songs coming out, and then with the whole grand entrance, and then with the match itself, and then even the exit with the music going again, and then how are they exiting? Are they walking on their own? Are they walking with security? Are they walking with medics? Are they being stretchered out? What is it? Um, all of that comes into play to make, I mean, it's a soap opera, we all know that, but it's a beautiful one that when it's done right is it's so much fun to watch. And I honestly feel bad for so many people that don't understand it or don't like it. I get why they don't, and I get why they did back in the, because we were kids back in like the 90s and whatever, but there's just something about it that just can connect with you through all decades. If you like stories. If you don't like stories, you're not going to like wrestling. You're not going to like, especially now that Triple H is doing more long-winded stories and long-term storytelling, that if you like that and they can connect those, you're just going to be hooked. And if they hook you a little bit, what you said with your wife and daughter with well, they wanted to see The Rock, and they saw The Rock, and then they got hooked on the Cody Rhodes story, and now Cody Rhodes then feuded with this person, and now he's feuding with Kevin Owens. And if you hook them and you get them going, they're along for the ride.
Yeah, it's funny because they, you know what? At the beginning of the year, neither of these two in this household, with the exception of me, could have told you who Roman Reigns was. They would have had no idea. But all of a sudden, he's not only just friends with The Rock, he's cousins with The Rock. I love him. Oh my god. My daughter's like, yeah. Right? Now we all got Roman Reigns t-shirts, by the way. That was the big expensive purchase of the weekend that day. I digress. They couldn't have told you who he was. Now, outside of The Rock and maybe Cody, he's right there as far as their top guy. Right? Okay. Now we're hooked into the whole, oh my God, I hate Solo. If my daughter was here, she could tell you the favorite part of SmackDown was swearing at Solo. Because the crowd at one point burst into "fuck you, Solo" in a nice round of chants. Her eyes lit up. Like, just go, just say it. It's okay. She's 8, shouldn't be swearing. But I'm like, listen, there's like 10,000 people here. Just yell it. It's fine. It's okay. Her favorite part was that, and yeah, maybe that says something to me about a parent. I don't know. Whatever.
It's funny that you say that, because when I was a kid, my first wrestling show, I got permission from my mom that if they started an asshole chant, I was allowed to say asshole. Like, I was allowed. They weren't saying fuck you back then, at least not to my knowledge. Not the show I went to anyway, but I got permission that if they started chanting asshole, which they did because Vince was there, I was allowed to chant asshole. So I remember getting that permission from my mom. So it's hilarious that your daughter was like, can I? I want to participate.
And the only talk we had to have was the next Monday. We're driving to school. I'm like, no, listen, just don't tell your teachers your favorite part was swearing at Solo. Say you got to yell at Solo. Just gloss right over exactly what you yelled. Just say you got to yell at him, and that's fine. We're okay with that.
Oh, that's too funny. So you went to the live SmackDown, right?
Yep.
Okay, because I've done a live SmackDown, but I've also done a tape SmackDown, which I didn't like as much, just because I really like the live element of it. It's one of the reasons I'm glad that they basically kept doing live shows rather than like taped. And I know right now they're on a couple of tapes right for the next couple of weeks, and then in December there's going to be a couple because that's holidays. I get that. You should do that. Give them time to spend with their families and everything else. But it also is there's something about that live element. Even if you screw up or even if something bad happens, like it's okay. Try to figure it out, roll with it. And there are sometimes I look at um, Austin broke his neck, which was the worst thing ever, but it did help his character in the long run. It shortened his career, but it helped his character be this badass character that came back and whooped everybody's ass. Becky Lynch, who busted her nose wide open, and to be fair, shouldn't have been doing anything because she definitely had a concussion. But that iconic image of her just busted open with her nose bleeding after she wrecked house. Like you're gonna have moments like that if it's taped that they can edit out or they can reshoot or they can do everything like that. I love the idea that it's live and anything can happen and should happen. And it's also one of the reasons I respect what they do because although it is rehearsed, although it is predetermined, like you have to do this on a night in, night out basis for the fans that are going. Like your sounds like this might have been the first event your wife ever went to, definitely the first event that your kid ever went to. So like they're putting on a show for people that have never been. It's not like you or me that might, if they see something, might be like, oh well, it happens. We understand it. But these are first timers that are going that expecting perfection, so to speak, because it's like when they watch on TV and that they're able to do it week in, week out, and then the house shows. It's yeah. Like I said, I respect them more than the average person just for what they're able to do. And then when we go to the storytelling part of it, one of the reasons I brought it up about the long-term storytelling and being able to thread that, me being like hooked on it, and obviously sounding now like your family hooked too with the certain stories. When we look at GWF, it was a little bit hard to do that. You tried and you would try, but your fans, so to speak, were the other role players. So it wasn't like you could hear from the crowd whether they liked it or not. When I'm writing matches or when I'm writing promos, the crowd's doing whatever the hell I tell them to. So you don't get that automatic feedback. You literally have to wait to hear from your peers slash competitors of whether they liked something, didn't like something. Was this feud just a waste of time, or was it one of the feuds that everybody just kept reading about because they were very curious what was to happen? Because a lot of people are self-centered and self-centric when it comes to e-feds, and I was one of those people for a while where if it wasn't about my character, what the hell do I care about what else is going on in the show? And you needed something to hook you to be like, hey, this is an interesting read. Hey, this is something else going on that it might not affect your character this moment, but it's happening on in the background. So you might get pulled into this eventually.
Yeah, I think that there's a takeaway from that, and in 2024, it's kind of hard to understand that. Well, how did you not know what people were doing? Well, one, web was, I don't want to say it was in infancy, but as far as I was concerned, I had no idea what we're doing. In 2024 now, things like analytics, Google Analytics or Meta tracking, whatever, things you can add into a website to say, well, how long did a person spend reading this section of text? That exists now. There's stats to tell you how, where on the screen that they clicked to try and do something, right? We had none of that. It was just put it up there and hope for the best, right? So it's hard for somebody today that came up in the internet age to understand, well, how do you not have, everybody has tracking data. That's the big news. How much data does somebody have on you? Well, we had none.
Well, you used to, what was
absolutely
it?
None.
A visit counter or a site visit counter that people
Right.
used to
Yeah.
have. But
And
that just told you how many people came to your website, not how long they spent there, not what else they were clicking on, but literally just how many times somebody came to your website, which I will admit at one point I did have it on a website. And because I wanted the website to look better, I just kept hitting refresh and or exiting out of the browser and opening up the browser so that it would keep counting that somebody else was going there. I remember doing that over 100 times one point so that I could, when I was trying to recruit, be like, look, there are people we had today, like on the site. Like, don't you want to be a part of this?
yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to think back to it, and then it's great. There are a few instances where we had I guess I'll say a long term story, right, where it maybe spanned a few months. That's cool. That takes dedication from at least two parties, maybe more, right? So you or myself as the showrunner have to know, and then you had somebody. Let's pretend it's the world title picture. So your world champion has to talk to the challenger, and hey, we want to set up this thing. Now, the root of an EFED is, well, I want to out role play this other guy, right? Well, now it doesn't matter, right? So you're both role playing, but much like the real show, the results are predetermined. Because they've already established that, oh, this match I'm gonna win this way, this match I'm gonna win this way, and then the third rubber match we're gonna do for reals. Okay, that's fine. It's something to do, but you're right. How many other people care? If there's 50 guys on the roster, well, those other 48 probably don't care. And you probably got two or three sitting back there saying, well, are they done yet? Can I try? Yeah. Probably much like real wrestling, right? You have a locker room full of people who want to be the next man up. Um, and then what happens is those people in waiting they don't know how long this is going. Right? They're like, oh, these two again? No, I'll go somewhere else. And then they're gone. So maybe you had somebody who was maybe really good at writing, but they kind of lost interest because they didn't have a spot. Right? What are they going to do? Toil in the lower divisions for a little while? I mean, maybe that's not what they want to do. It's tougher in the context of an EFED where it's, I want to say it's like, oh, I'm actually fighting you, but you're trying to outduel somebody to some degree, right? So, you know, as opposed to having a script and what we're gonna do and we're gonna lead into this show and into this show, it's more the, you know, kind of like the UFC side where you're like, oh well, these two guys are gonna fight and we'll figure it out from there. Whoever comes out winning, you don't know, right? It's tougher in that EFED world because it's just you never know. Sometimes people were interested. I know Ash was really good. He really wanted to play that long game. He didn't want to just have one match here match. He wanted a story that made him interested. Other guys just didn't give a shit, right? They just want, hey, how do I get a title shot? What do I got to do? The only thing they had, if that meant they had to prove themselves in a few matches first, cool. But that's all they wanted to have their name, their profile. Look, I won a title. I didn't care about storytelling. So it's tougher in that EFED world. Now, it's hard to reward people for setting up a long-term story. Like, how would you do that? Conceptually, like, okay, hey, listen, I know you guys want to, you're all fighting for the world title because that's the top prize or whatever. But how do you reward somebody not just trying to go for that, but instead setting up a story to maybe go over 2, 3, or more months, or something even more cerebral where you fight a couple times and you kind of dip away and then you come back surprising. You can't, like, there's the amount of moving pieces is you're gonna piss somebody off essentially, right? Like, the two people involved, maybe the three people involved, will be super happy with how it's going until the end, based on the result, and everybody else that is waiting their turn is just going to be annoyed. And unless you made it a super good read where they actually were like, oh, I want to see what happens next. But I would bet, based on the age bracket that we were probably dealing with, that probably didn't exist to a higher degree.
Yeah, I think you hit it the nail on the head with that. I think there were some out there. Obviously, as the people like running it, I had to read everything, so I was kind of like forced in that realm to know what was going on with all their feuds, and obviously reading the role plays to kind of get all that information. But before doing that, it took something special to try to get me to read everything. I will say when I first joined GWF, it was like, okay, this has been here for a while. They have this cool little achievement page. How do I get my name on there? Was my first and only thought. How do I get my name on that list? And then I remember having a brief feud that lasted like 3 weeks and then had a match, won the title. And I was like, well, that was easy. And then trying to move on from there to figure out what I needed to do. I will say the second that I won the world title after I lost it, um, I then, even though I still wanted to be the champion eventually and yada yada, I then became more focused on how do I tell good stories. Like after I like could cross that off the list, so to speak, I then was like, okay, how do I tell better stories? Because I was still telling stories ahead before that. I had feuded with Dave, who joined us, who can't figure out his camera. Um, I had feuded with Ash a couple times, I think, with other characters that weren't in the
I'm
main
eating,
event
so
team.
you don't want to see me eating. I don't think anyway. You might.
I mean, there might be some people out there that are into that. Who knows? Um, but yeah, so I had the feuds, but they were like, you try to tell a good story, but I was more interested as, okay, we're telling this just to set up that hopefully I can win and move on, rather than, hey, I can look back at this story and be super interested or proud of it. Which is, I know it's a weird thing to say, but if you put your time and energy into writing something or coming up with a story, I want to be proud of that. I want to look back like I am now and being like, oh, I really liked some of this stuff. And some of the stuff we did, I absolutely hated. But then when I got more long-term thinking and was able to figure out what I wanted to do with certain characters, it became an outlet to give that off. And then when I did get some feedback from people, which again might come with a grain of salt because I was either helping run or running the Fed. But when you did get that feedback being like, hey, that was either a hell of a role play or your feud with this person has been really good. How do I do something similar to that? Like, how do I find that dance partner, so to speak? Because that was our biggest problem too, where sometimes where you would want to have these feuds and someone would be like, yeah, me too, let's do it, and then it's one-sided. Like, you're the only one writing the backstage segments, you're the only one putting your all into the promos, you're the only one that's writing the matches so that you could have it done the way you want it to tell the story you want to tell. And that becomes very tiring after a while, unless you're sadistic like the two or three of us are, because then you're just like, screw it, guess that's what we're doing for the next 10 years of my life. But there's a lot of that. But then when you find that right person that's able to collaborate with and be able to tell those stories and come up with those unique ideas, and where do you go from there? Like, one of the ones, I have a lot that I like for myself, but the one that Dave did, and I know he's eating, but I'm still going to talk about him, that he did with Brad and with the Money in the Bank, and he won the title while having Money in the Bank, and then lost the title while he was kind of like a face slash neutral, and then lost the title to another person that was a complete face, and then immediately did a heel turn that night, cashed in, won the title back. Like, I love that story, because if you look through the past history of his character, and Brad's character, I also like that Brad had no idea that it was going to happen. That made it a nice little surprise even for him. Like, oh, sweet, I won the world title, yay me, and oh, okay, it's gone. I loved that aspect of it, but the storytelling before that and then what came after that, I really enjoyed. And we had at least two people at that moment that was able to tell those. And then when I look at Ash and the stuff that he did with multiple people, I found myself enjoying reading the role plays and then reading the backstage segments and then somewhat reading the matches. It would depend on the match. Like if it's a regular weekly match, try to skim it and read what you can. If it was a pay-per-view match, most of those, if we were writing them ourselves for our specific characters, there were certain elements we wanted to hit. It wasn't just a paint by numbers match where you throw them into the corner and you hit them with a clothesline. It was my character would do this. My character would do this if they got hit with this. So those are the ones that I was more interested in. Hey, look, Dave's got his camera on. So proud of Dave. He did it. All by.
I appreciate your praise. But yeah, you're right. The Money in the Bank thing, I mean, you can get everybody to agree to it mutually, but it's not nearly as exciting, at least as the person cashing in. I mean, I never was cashed in on, so I can't relate, but
Yeah, I didn't. Nobody agreed when I cashed in both times I cashed in. Like I took it from Ash. He was not. Ash was. It's funny. He IM'd me right after. He's like, it makes sense for your character, but this is such fucking bullshit. Like, was his exact
right.
message. And I was like,
because you were just putting in results. You were basically the boss at the time, right? And so you didn't have to clear it. I had to clear my caching with you at least. Did have to clear it with somebody.
Yeah, yeah. So me at the time, I think I just took over. Like,
that doesn't. That probably didn't. The optics of that probably weren't.
It didn't look great. It didn't look great. I won Money in the Bank on my own because that was before I started putting up results. But I think like that was the last time other people were putting up like the pay-per-view results was at WrestleMania. And then the month after we did Backlash, and I had taken over putting out the results. And in Backlash, I won the tag titles with Mick. And then I retained my U.S. title, and then I cashed in after Ash finally won the world title after not holding the world title for like the last year and a half or something. And he's like, it makes sense, but I don't fucking like it.
Oh, because he won that night? He won the title that night?
He won that title that night after not holding like 18 months.
Yeah.
And then I lost it to you a month later.
Yeah, I don't remember these things. You must have them etched into your brain.
They're all up here, man. They're all up there. I'm sure I'm wrong on some of the timing of stuff, but yeah, I definitely remember certain things. There are certain other things like we've talked about in the past where someone's brought up like a match or a feud or something else. And I was like, I got no idea. But there are certain ones that I remember. Obviously, winning the world title for the first time, I'm going to remember. I'm going to remember Ash's message right after that because I laughed hysterically about it, which I was like, I get it, but my character absolutely would do this. But yeah, so the storytelling part of it, even though that looked, it was bad optics, but the storytelling aspect of it is something I like too. Like my character would absolutely do these things as the schmuck that he is. So but we were talking about it before you joined, Dave. It's very hard because Dennis actually, his family talked him into going. I don't think it took much convincing, but they had never been to a wrestling event before, so they wanted to go. They've gotten into wrestling now. So he went, and we were talking about them being entertained by everything, and obviously the crowd playing a big part in what works and what doesn't in wrestling. And it's very hard to do that in EFED world because we our peers and our competitors are the fans, so to speak. So it's very hard to know what's working and what's not working. You could come up with this big giant feud for 6 months and love it, but if nobody reads it, only you and that person you're feuding with is happy.
There's no real metric. Like you can't, even just if you could see the views of how many people have viewed what you've wrote, it doesn't mean anything. They could just be exiting the screen right away.
Yeah, so
there's no real metrics to determine that aside from random feedback.
Yeah, back then, because we were talking about now that almost you could add analytics onto every web page of how long people viewed this section of the web page, how long they did here, how long did they stay on. We would now have that information. Not that you should necessarily need it, but it could be there. And there's a lot of websites now where it's just built in. So you can just tell, like it just gives you that information.
It is good to get some positive reinforcement and not just write for yourself all the time. So that is good.
Yeah. So I always used our end of the year awards as kind of a nod to like hey, this was match of the year. That means people read the match, they really liked the match of the year. If feud of the year, people were paying attention to this and it was happening and people know kind of
Sure,
like
you can get people to vote. I've seen other feds do that stuff too. Getting people to vote on stuff.
yep.
That's a good idea for sure.
And we would do that for a while too. We'd say, hey, here's an open forum. Here's the things we're thinking of. And if we had 10 listed, people would put in like 2. Like, oh yeah, here's my favorite feud, and here's my favorite moment. Okay, what about the other 8 things? Oh yeah, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody cared, right? And it's funny, we're talking about, in the back of my head, I'm kind of like brainstorming. Well, how would you make this better? If I was relaunching today, it's not happening. Not happening.
Dave,
But
I've heard he's relaunching. That's what I'm taking from this. The GWF 7.0 will be up.
I would expect you to relaunch
6.5 at this point. Yeah, I don't even know what version it would be. Like how would it go about? Like, okay, first and foremost, it is not a one-man show anymore. Can't be. We've both learned that lesson the absolute hardest way we could. Can't be a one-man show. Okay, knowing that, well, what's the next step? What do you need? What does WWE use? There's a word that I'm looking for. What does WWE use for their matches? Okay, that's fair. That was a softball, and I completely. That's not the answer I was looking for. However,
are you sure?
It's a valid answer.
If we had employees, we could have this shit running very smoothly.
They're coming out of your pocket because they ain't coming out of mine. Producers.
Yeah.
Right. So now, okay. I'll oversee all aspects. Right. Okay. Right or wrong, that's how it's going to work. Then if you had producers, okay, well, that sounds great. Like, okay, I'm going to have, hey, listen, there's 4 of us. I'll oversee everything because my world, I win. And then the 3 of you, you're going to have to deal with, like, okay, you guys are going to get these 2 matches. You can get these 3 other smaller matches. Help these people come together and help them tell their story, right? Maybe that means, hey, run your role plays by me first, and I'll give you tips, and then you post them. Okay. In a vacuum, this sounds fine. But those producers are probably not there just to be producers. They would be there to also be probably role players. So now they're pulling double duty. Okay. Well, now you have people have lives. Cool. As you've stated, employees. Yeah, they're not that. Right. So, in telling stories in an eFed world, you are 100% reliant on the 2 people telling the story, and then probably yourself to kind of oversee and say, guys are either crossing a line here, or this is kind of dumb. Or if you're overworked, you just say, fuck it, print it. Could go either way.
I've done that.
Yep. I've done it too. I will 100% admit, like, God, this is awful. It's 2 a.m. I don't care. Send it. You kind of got to have that structure in place, though. Like, maybe you don't do it every match. So, if you have yourself, like, okay, I run the Fed, I'm going to oversee the world title picture. Whoever is world champion and their direct competitors, maybe it's the top 3 people. I'm going to oversee what's going on with you. Hey, you as maybe a secondary, vice president or whatever terms we're using this day and age. Maybe you can oversee the other titles, and then maybe you have a third person to oversee the rest. Hey, can you help these guys that just joined? Maybe they need a leg up starting something, right? We used to have the, what was it, OOC board. We had a challenge board for a while. Like, hey, I want a match. Maybe you had a person that did that. Say, look, hey, you're looking for a match. You're looking for a match. You too. You got 3 days to put something together. I want to see your role plays in 2. But again, people have lives. I play in other, piddly, gotcha games or whatever, and there's like guild, kind of concepts, right? So you have, hey, we're all playing this game and we're all here in the same guild or whatever they want to call it. Yeah, but even in that, people have lives. Like, I'm not logging in every day to play a stupid free game. You know, I'm logging into, hey, I had a shitty day at work. I want to do some mindless gaming. Yeah, cool. I'm in. But some days you're just busy. Same thing happened. You know, you're not paying these people. You're not putting on a show. So you're reliant on, oh, what are we running? 2 shows a week like TV does? You know, hey, we're still doing a Raw and a SmackDown, or maybe you do once a week. You still need people to be part of that. And it's hard to really say anybody you don't know is going to put that kind of effort in, right? You might have a week where they, you know, hey, there's been 3 of us role playing and somebody just didn't show up this week to talk about, you know, what we're doing next. Well, then what? You know, it's a tough situation, right? It's hard to tell anything long term in an eFed world when there's just no, I can't put the right word. What's the right word? There's no, not like work, right? You're not showing up to work every day because you're happy to show up to work. You're showing up to work because you're getting paid.
Yep.
Right. So, you know, if it's an eFed and then I'm like, oh, man, I ate dinner and I fell asleep on the couch and completely forgot. Yeah, sorry. Maybe I went on vacation and didn't tell anybody I was going away for a couple days. Sorry. It's an eFed. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It means something to like 2 or 3 people, yourself, myself, right? Because it's something we did every single day for years on end, which was a dumbass move, both of our parts. But to everybody else, it just doesn't mean anything, right? Nobody, you're fully well know everybody else was in other eFeds, right? There's no way you're saying I'm only this one. I am very loyal to this eFed, and that's it. Okay, maybe one person.
No, there was definitely a few, just because of the fact that the other ones were not as good, didn't have the website, didn't have this. It's one of the reasons why when I joined GWF, I was in other ones too, but then faded away from the other ones because GWF had the updates, it had the roster, it had the creative control, so to speak, of what you wanted to do. So I faded away, and I know some other people did too, but the second that they got bored, they would just go to another one where they didn't have to do as much. Only thing you have to do is show up and role play. Somebody else is writing the segment, somebody else is writing the matches, somebody else is coming up with creative. You are literally just there to role play. I really wish that back in the day there was some type of, God, now I want to call it a support group now that I'm this old. But back then, something where it was like, hey, are you this person that is that anal and dedicated to eFeds? Hey, how about we all get together and share the load type of thing? Where I think at one point, myself, Ash, and Dave tried to do that. But then one of us, probably me, was like, you guys are too slow. I don't trust what you're doing. Why aren't you doing it the way I want you to do it? And took over control and was just like, I'll just do it myself, which then
it's all the administrative stuff that Ash and I had no interest in doing.
yeah.
And then you were always very good at it, but also very good at the actual writing part. So that's why you ended up doing mostly everything.
Keep the flattery coming,
Yeah.
Dave. I like it.
Yeah.
It's flattering
it's
with
just-
a
it's
sense
true.
of a knockback.
I mean, that's it. The two, like, well, what are you interested in doing? Well, that's great for a week.
No.
Then you realize what's actually entailed with keeping that aspect running, and you're like, God, this sucks. Like, I don't think there was any redeeming part.
I think just writing out weekly matches was always the worst to me.
Yeah, and that
You
was
wrote
where
like a million of them. So
then that's where I think I started with like asking for help. Was I said, okay, I have people I can bounce ideas off of sometimes, but God, I just need to write these stupid matches. And there was like a writer's, I don't even remember what I called it. There was like a writer's page where you could go in and say, you'd say, hey, I'm going to write this match. And I think we've talked about this a number of times at this point. People would go in, they'd log in, would say, I'm going to write this match. Okay, it's 11 o'clock on a show night. where's the damn match? You said you were going to write this. Radio silence, right? Just not even like, hey, sorry, I got busy. Just nothing. Like they signed up for it. They say, yeah, sure. And then completely forgot about it, which happens. Right? And what do you do? Kick them out of the group? Okay. Yeah. I mean, all right. Listen, a warning on the first time. Second time, you're gone. Great. Now you got no writers anymore. Like, what's the point? Right. So you're writing the damn matches anyways. So it was even the worst part. You couldn't get help. Hey, listen, there's no strings attached. On a random Thursday night, just go in and write this match. You know what? Even if you leave off the ending, I think I started saying, just write it up. Either write 2 endings, right? Like, if you can't decide, if it's not obvious from the role plays, because you don't want to get involved with winning and losing, and I completely understood that, and I think that got a lot of people worried. I don't want to write a match for this guy winning when maybe he didn't deserve to win. I'm like, well, write 2 endings, or leave the ending off, and I'll fill in the last 4 sentences. What happens, right? I'll figure that at any point in the match. Listen, we've all watched enough wrestling. We can figure out how to turn a match around in a dime, right? Like, that's not the hard part. It was just the rest of like, man, everybody's got their signature moves. They gotta, I gotta have the face go up for a little while. No, now he's getting beat down. I gotta have it turn around and make it sound like a match. Yeah, and then you end up with the matches where I wrote where I'm like, sorry, the writer didn't show up. ... And then I write the ending of the match. I'm like, I don't have time to write a full match here. So I'm starting at the end. I'm sorry. Like,
so it's funny to me that it probably is the first feature that you created for other people, the writers, because I still remember the way that I think I stood out to you in general was I wrote every match for like 3 cards straight and just had them done early too. Where then it became like, okay, he seems to be interested. Is this going to last? Because anybody could feel like, hey, I want to help for a week, 2 weeks. But it's the longevity part of it where you're like, okay, maybe this person's going to stick around and maybe I don't have to worry if they, because there was always certain people, as you mentioned, like if I saw their name that they volunteered to do a match, I'm like, damn it, it's either going to come super late or I'm just going to write it myself. Like at this point, out of the 10 matches that they've said, I think you also had I'm almost 100% sure there was a spot in the writer's admin that showed how often they didn't do a match. Like it said how many they said they were going to do. And
yeah, there were stats for sure. Yeah,
the stats.
It sounds like something I got really vindictive one night and said, I am pissed off. I'm going to call your asses out. That sounds like me. I'm not
it was
lie.
good to use.
I mean, it was definitely helpful though, right? Because then if you saw someone called a match and their stats sucked, you really wouldn't be counting on it.
No, and I would be even more anal, I guess, because I would message them. You have only done 22% of the matches that you've said you're going to do, and you have said you're going to do this match. If you're doing this match, I need it tomorrow. Not when it's due in like 2 days, tomorrow, or I'm taking you off and I'm letting hopefully somebody else write it, or I'll fucking do it myself. But I like that part for that same reason. I could know ahead of time, oh, I'm going to get
and it kept me account. I tried to keep my percentage like over 95 at least.
See, and same thing. Like when mine dropped below 100, I was so pissed off. And I was just like, there's no way to get it back to 100 either. It's only going to like sit at 99. And yeah,
well, you were an admin. So you probably could have tweaked it in the back end probably.
Oh, I'm sure I probably could have. Or message Dennis, be like, hey, how do we reset this? Or how do I do this?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I did it in the other half, right? So that was writing matches, and the other half of deciding winners and losers. And I think I built a voting thing for that too.
Results committee.
There you go. That's the word. There's a thing that sounds
get used.
Which again, people sounded like they cared about and wanted it, but as soon as it became like, oh, I actually have to do this, they didn't care. Like, I guess what else could you do? You're paying some money for the site. Like, I'm technically still paying for the domain name because I'm not losing that because, I mean, it's not, $20 every couple of years. Who cares?
Yeah.
But what else could I have done? Well, could I have offered incentives? Yes. Would it have taken much? Probably not. Could I say, hey, for every match you get credits, and then at the end of the year you can exchange, I'll give you credits for a gift card or something? Sure. I could have spent more money. Granted, as time goes on, that money would get more and more and more. But do you have to incentivize people to do that now? Probably. I mean, I don't think you'd have to go broke doing it, but you'd have to budget for it. Like, hey, listen, you can earn 25 cents a match and you can choose your payout schedule. And it sounds like shit, but if we have 10 matches a card and we do, 2 cards a week plus 1 more a month, and, for an average of what, 20, 40, 60, 80, for let's say 90 matches a month, there's an opportunity for money there. You write 10 a month, and by the end of the year, you have, a gift card. It sucks to have to try, and now you're managing that. Now I got to pay out gift cards. And now I'm like, oh my God, now it's a stupid business. And I don't have an LLC. Like, oh, I guess,
So
I guess
I
that
should
would
have
have
held
been,
out longer for you to pay me, is what you're telling me.
yeah, probably.
Damn it.
Probably would have been a smart move.
My problem with the results committee is I didn't know who I could trust. Like, there were some people that you knew you could trust. They absolutely read the role plays. If Dave did it, if Ash did it, there were a couple other people who I knew that if they read it, or if they voted, it meant that they read the role plays and they voted. And there are other people that left certain ones blank, meaning they didn't read those ones, but they did read the other ones. I was okay with those ones too, because that tells me that they didn't read those ones. So they genuinely went in and went, okay, I read these 2 role plays. This is the one that's better. I didn't care about the rest of the card, but I wanted to give my opinion on like the main event or whatever. But then there's other people that just, you could tell right away when you're reading it, you're like, there's no fucking way you thought they won. There's no way for what they wrote and how they did it. So that was always the hard part too, because you were like, hey, you're getting help, but is it actual help?
Yeah. Is it more of a hurt than it is a help?
Right.
See, that's the logistics thing. I think, again, the site to put together, I don't want to say it's easy, right? There's a lot of logistics in there, but it's the other side of the house. It's really that the day-to-day of role plays, the getting results, the deciding of matches. Everything else is cake, right? It's busy work. The actual decision making and content is just a slog that is just so hard to get through.
I will say that the decision making isn't that bad if it's like a one-off. So like if we ever did, which I'm not saying we will, but if we ever did like a one night show anniversary thing, whatever we do, judging for one night, okay, that's fine. I will take the time. I'll read everything. I will grade those papers and then come up with the winners, and it'll be good. The second that I'd have to do it again the next night, and then again 2 nights later, and then again 3 nights later, I would lose my mind again, because that was a point in my life where I enjoyed it. And I think some of the enjoyment, oh God, it's going to sound terrible. Stockholm Syndrome. Like, I was in it and I was like, this is what I like to do. And then like you get out of it and you're like, Jesus Christ, did I spend so many hours, so many days reading homework, judging people, writing things that I hope people read, but who knows, coming up with these things, updating the website, whatever it is. But in the moment, for however many years it was, I don't remember now, like, it's all I thought about, it's all I cared about. Sure, I did other things outside of the EFED world too, but like GWF was always on my mind. And it's still something that I think back on, which I'm glad now it's been so many years, because more of my memories are fond memories, especially when we do these things. Even though a bit of it is us complaining and bitching about stuff, I still remember the fun times of it, of the collaboration, of the matches, of the stupid fun things that we had, and then sometimes just the IM sessions that I had with Dave, with Ash, with with Aaron, with Bear, with Tom, with Mitch, with yada yada yada. There's so many names. Where you're talking with somebody who has similar interests of wrestling, and most of the time you're talking about wrestling, but you can veer off into other topics, and you have that person to talk about this stuff with. So all of that was enjoyable. But yeah, the other stuff definitely, when you're in it, you're in it. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm here. And then as soon as you get out of it, it is PTSD sometimes of thinking back.
I remember the highs. Listen, I can go back and I hated the day to day, but I remember like, okay, hey, I actually had 6 really good idea for the what did I call them? The GWF entrance video, you know, the Titantron ripoffs. I had 6 really good ideas, and I Globaltrons. There you go. Some stupid word. I had 6. They came out great. Like, cool. I love these. They're going to be stale in a week, but I love these 6, and I'm going to put them up now. And holy crap, we just had a really good pay-per-view, and we did some really cool graphics. I think there was one WrestleMania, man, I think it was 5. I think it was very, I kind of stole the Hollywood motif from the one they did out there with the ribbons and kind of things going on.
Yeah.
I think it was I think Full Blown Rose, I think I used as the music. I don't know why I can remember that aspect.
I still remember WrestleMania 6's graphics because it was the
6 was 666.
Yes. It was the dark
the evil. Yeah.
I remember that's the one that sticks in my head. I don't even know if I was around for 5, but I remember 6 and it being the dark, the evil, the 666. Yeah.
That I remember that one because that one, like, do I do this? Like, this doesn't feel like WrestleMania is supposed to be a showcase. This feels like one of the secondary, like, oh, this is like a Bad Blood or an Armageddon or a Judgment Day kind of. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. I only remember the other one because I messed with moving graphics, right? We did the Flash match videos, and I tried to get, okay, guy comes in, there's his name. Other guy comes in, there's his name. Then they come together and there's your match graphic. Almost like you would see, now granted they weren't actually like coming into their pose, they were just static graphics. But I tried to mimic that. Like, that's just different. Right. And it's giving each match its own little flair. And maybe as a role player, you think, oh, look, I got a graphic. How cool is that? And I remember, I can remember sitting there. I think a couple of the Armageddons I thought came together great as far as like the page and the video and the amount of matches and how they went. I remember those highs. And you finally finish and you post it and you're doing all the updates and getting all the title updates, and this came out cool. And you can sit back for 2 minutes. It might be 3 a.m. You don't know. But you can sit back for 2 minutes and you're like, damn, that's cool. Like, it all came together. I have to do it again tomorrow. Don't remind me of that fact. But for right now, it all came together. Those are the highs. And those are great. And then you're thinking, oh, look, the site is good. It's coming together. We got people here every day. Well, now what's in the back of my head? What's next? What are you gonna do next? Because this is great for now, but it's the internet, and it's people in the 10 to 24 age bracket. Their attention span is garbage. What are you gonna do next? Because you got another pay-per-view next month. You got to think of a new theme. Think of a new graphic style, and you can't just copy and paste the whole thing. So now you're like, well, shit. I enjoyed that for 4 minutes. Great. I guess I'll.
So I'm curious with Dave, when you were doing a lot of the admin stuff, did you have many moments of that, of the, oh, I feel really good about what we just did, whether it's the results or whether it was an updates? Obviously, you weren't too much of a graphics guy, but when you were posting everything and having everything, were there moments where you're just like, oh, okay, that was good. That was done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't honestly remember concrete examples, but I know for sure I had those feelings many times.
Only in the role-playing stage, or was it when you were doing?
But also helping to put together results.
Yeah,
definitely. Putting it all together. seeing stories pay off, right? But that's less of an admin thing.
Well, you hope it's less of an admin thing, but sometimes when you're the admin, you see every story, so you're seeing the payoffs rather than everybody else you're hoping is reading those payoffs and paying attention to these other stories. From your side, you do get to see, as the admin, I got to see every payoff. Whether it was a good payoff or not a payoff, you got to see it.
I know, like, GWF for a lot of its existence was, handler driven, right? But then at a certain point, when me, you, and Ash were running things, I think we were trying to help people too, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't just all handler driven, because if you leave it all handler driven, much of the time there's just that's the biggest downfall, is there's no cohesion, right? Or that's
not
the
only cohesion, there was also a lot of
cohesion.
people that didn't like, they'd want to help or they'd want to start a story and then they just drop it, and their interests only
you gotta stick to it.
Right.
You can do a one-off 1 month, 2 month, 1 month title shot thing, right? But like, you can't just always do that. So it was always hard to get people to put together like a few month long story, right? Like, that was a very rare thing to witness people do.
And not just do, but make it interesting. You can't just have a match and then you won, and then I want another match. Okay, we'll do that. Oh, you won. Okay, well, now we got to have a third match to pay it off. Okay, why? Like, there's got to be more to it. There's got to be something. I'm not saying everything has to be this big blood feud. Those should be few and far between, but there needs to be something rather than I want to fight you.
It was always tough. Like, there was always like a formula, right, for like a blood feud. Like, start off with the regular match and you keep gradually escalating. I feel like I always fell into a trap of repeating the formula, but it was always tough to figure out the different match types, what they should be each month and all that.
So for my blood feuds, I never liked them to start as a blood feud. I liked us to like have matches and do whatever feud, and then it's when we come back to each other. Like, Paul Burchill and Canyon came back to each other so many different times. Burchill and Steven Richards back to each other numerous times. Canyon and Matt Murphy back to each other too many times. And
Matt Murphy, that's the name I haven't heard.
So, like, you have those. That's when, to me, like, it raises up the level. It's very rare. I mean, granted, WWE just did it with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, but they lucked into that with an injury, and that's what helped it sustain itself and become this 9-month long blood feud, which had an amazing payoff. I always thought it's so much harder to have that initially. You can still have a feud, you can still make it fun, but it's until you have that history to like look back on where then it can be a blood feud. Like, maybe you've never gotten the one up on them. Maybe you've never won this type of match. Maybe after the match, even though you won, they went on to win the world title and you haven't. Like, there's so many other elements that you can grab from when you're looking at the history, more than, hey, let's just start a feud. Oh, I really hate you, broke into my house, and then that's it. Like, there's not much room to go from there, and I like having that range, and especially if you're talking about years. Canyon was a heel, then he was a face, then he was a heel, then he was a face, then he was a heel. Paul Burchill, same thing. Steven Richards, same thing. So you're able to do those different dynamics. So even though you might be, oh, it's you guys feuding again. Yeah, but now I get to play the face and he gets to play the heel. That's a whole different feud.
It's just like real life. Like, you need time to really build and establish these things. I mean, oftentimes in e-feds don't even last for 6 months. You know what I mean? So you need a good amount of time. You need to sustain, interesting characters and feuds.
When did we shut it down? I know it opened in 97.
2015, right? Or 2014? I don't remember.
2015 might sound right. Did we make it to WrestleMania 18? And I really wanted to make it to WrestleMania 20.
I have past pay-per-view results in 2015.
Okay. So we made it to 2015 or 2016, one of those. I think you have it through 2015, but you don't have SummerSlam, which was our last match, our last pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Right. I have February of 2015 is the backup I got.
Yeah. So yeah, it goes all the way through August 2015 or July, one of them. And then we ended it there just because there was not a lot of activity. Why are we still putting ourselves through this? But I really wanted to, one, make it to WrestleMania, just end on a WrestleMania in general, or make it to WrestleMania, would have been WrestleMania 20, right? 07, 17. Yeah, it would have been WrestleMania 20 if we could have made it to 2017.
You know, a tough thing for us always was it was always fun to feud with each other, but then how is that helping the rest of the EFED?
Right.
That was always a struggle. If we're just feuding with each other, it's just, what are we doing this for? I mean, I don't know.
Just for fun to see who's better between the two of us is kind of what I thought about it
Might as well
as.
just not have anyone else in the EFED.
Yeah. I also I realized that like at different points of my EFED career, with Canyon especially, not so much the other ones, but with Canyon, where I went from fuck it, I need to win everything, I got to do everything I can, to okay, how do I help other people try to be better? And I think it's when I started taking over and started seeing like the backlash of being like a character while owning. I tried to be like, okay, how do I put myself in other feuds to like elevate them? But then I got so annoyed when like the level of effort they put in was just so lackluster, and you're just like, well, what's the
You're gonna
point?
put somebody over for sure.
Yeah,
Lucid.
I want
Numerous
effort.
times.
I want to make sure that if I put them over and then they're going to that top spot, they're going to be around. They're not just going to bail away in like another day or week or month. Like I want them
Yeah,
to
I
be.
mean, I think you and I both kind of did the traditional WWF thing where we held like the Intercontinental title for even like years, and then eventually we got the world title. It was a very traditional kind of
Yeah, I
time.
think we talked about this during one of the podcasts where, yeah, I absolutely love that. And the fact it felt Rock Austin to me, even though Canyon is not Rocker Austin, Paul Burchill's not Rocker Austin, but that's what it felt like. You started in the low mid card feud, worked
Very
your way
gradual,
up,
you know,
and we had
progression.
those feuds to begin with, and then got to the world title, and then we're able to keep those feuds going too. And that's what you should have. The idea that you should be able to walk into any Fed and just get a world title shot, whether it's real or E-Fed, is crazy. You should have
Well,
to.
because it's like you can be the best writer in the world, but in the end, you need to trust that the person's gonna stay invested. If they're not, you don't want them to be world champion. So it's not just about being the best writer.
Right. Yeah, if you like, so many E-Fed started like night one, they'd have a Royal Rumble or they'd have a tournament, and the best writer
Yeah.
would win, and then they just vanish. So then like they won the world title, and now you got to do it again. You got to do another battle royal. You got to come up with a story reason to give it to
Yeah, it
somebody
never
else.
ends. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to be that person in the long run that's going to stick around, and maybe they're not the greatest writer in the world, but sometimes you'll take that mid writer or good writer over that great one because that great one just vanishes.
Yeah. Yeah, we no doubt had cases where we had good writers, even great writers, come in and just ghost, right? Happened
I
all the
know,
time.
which was so disappointing sometimes
Like,
because you
oh, this
read
is
some of
someone
their
we can
role
push, and
plays.
then they're gone.
Yeah. And you read some of their role plays, and you're like, damn, dude, like you can be one of the top guys here, and then they're just gone. Like Malachi and Jordy.
Oh yeah, Malachi was great, and they were both
Yeah.
great.
But it's just very short lived. Like he would come in, blow up the joint, and then leave, come back
Yeah,
like 8 to 12 months later, have maybe a little minor feud, leave again, come back, run the gambit, leave. I don't know if he got bored or just life got in the way, because life always gets in the way. But it was one of those things where if you could be as dedicated as like I am, or even half as dedicated as I am, like this is somebody that I'd want that world title scene, and to have their picture posted, so so to speak, of like, hey, this is our champion. Look at all the shit that he's done. Like, read this stuff.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
pretty.
I don't even remember you taking. I definitely took like a few month breaks at times. I don't remember you taking any breaks. I could be wrong.
I did it one time because it was we had an elimination chamber pay-per-view, and I was supposed to write it, and I got in a car accident and um basically ghosted because I was in a car accident, like not doing the pay-per-view results. I wasn't online. Everybody was like, what the fuck happened? And then I came back, and then you and Dave were like, hey, or you and Dave, you and Ash were like, hey, we did this, and we're kind of going to take over some of this stuff now because you seem to be doing way too much. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to back away. But then about 3 months later, probably I got too anal. And I was like, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing this? They could be doing this. This could be better. And then just did it myself. And as soon as I took back over the reins, you guys were like, cool. I don't have to do this. Great.
Very true.
Yeah, it's probably a problem with me. That's fine. That's what therapy's for.
It costs too much.
That's fair. That's what this is for then.
This is true.
The biannual chat about GWF, you learn about yourselves and go, oh God.
Looking back at so the WrestleMania I'm thinking of was WrestleMania 7 from 2006. And I'm looking back at the page and like, oh my God, I remember setting up all these details I had to make. Now it's Flash doesn't work anymore, so that's a thing. But I remember, I had to build a little music thing for each pay-per-view. And then I made a background, an 800 by 600, by the way, which is like your phone size now. And a 1024 by 768 back, like a wallpaper for your computer, because yeah, people did that with the GWF.
Yep.
I'm gonna make a pay-per-view background.
I did. Every time a new pay-per-view was out, I made that my background until I started creating them myself. Like as soon as I started doing the graphics, not a single one of them was my wallpaper. But when you were doing them, yeah, I made them my wallpaper. God, I feel like I'm showing my obsession of GWF way too much during these podcasts, but that's fine.
That's all right. And then I'm like, oh my God, I remember having to make these layouts like every time and picking colors and figuring out what works. And oh God, like it's like all flooding back, and I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I can also, it's funny because I'm looking, I just hit the past pay-per-view results page. Right, and you can kind of click through the years and then click on the logos, and I can tell exactly where my graphic style ends.
What are you trying to say there? What are you trying to say?
That I know my style, and it's like, oh yeah, I could tell I made that logo because that's something I would have done. Like Google Photoshop effect for some stupid background. Like I could picture myself Googling, how do I make like a stupid, blurry, wavy, liney background. Don't even know what that means, but I'm trying to do it. I know what I have in my head, but I don't know how to make that effect.
So that's going to make me ask this question then. When you were creating all these things, did you have what you wanted in your head before you ever did the graphic?
Usually, yeah.
I did it the opposite. I went to, what was it, like PSD, official PSD, PSD official, and PSD Dreams back in the day. And I would scroll through pages and pages of like vectors and hope for something to like spark my interest of like, oh, that would be cool if I was to do this, that, or the other. I hardly, unless it was a certain pay-per-view, like Flatline, named after Canyon, by the way, so yay me. I had a great idea for that of doing, writing out Flatline and using the Flatline thing, but making it Jeff Hardy doing the Swanton Bomb as one of the beeps or one of the lines. Like I had that thought and I did that one, but all the other ones were literally going somewhere. And because I wasn't like a graphic guy, I could do it, but they weren't professional by any sense of the word. So I had to be like inspired to, oh, I could do this. This could look cool. And will it fit the theme? God, I hope so.
We had some events that were static, uncensored. And uncensored was always the WCW style of like, okay, we're either going to call out the N, the U and the censored are going to be the same, and the N's going to be some weird stylistic thing, or maybe the UN is going to be, we'll do that as a whole, and censored is some, hey, think censored block, right? Like, oh yeah, censored on TV, and then we'll slap UN in front of it because that's what we did, right? I could think of those, like those I probably didn't think about too much ahead of time. Like, no, I probably just went into Photoshop, started playing around with ideas, and as soon as I kind of saw something I kind of liked, then refined that. Other ones I do remember, because I remember I was doing like a telephone tech support job for a while, and I would work like the second shift. So it was like noon to like 9 or some crap like that. And there were as the night kind of got lower, calls wound down a bit. So the last maybe couple hours of your shift, your calls are few and far between. I do remember having a notebook and I'd be sketching like ideas, like, oh, maybe I could try something like this, or especially for like the in your houses, right? Because the in your house named could change. It was, yeah, we knew it was an in your house, but I could make up anything after that. We have in your house stormfront, in your house fallout. I don't even know what stormfront would have meant, but it sounded cool in my head, so we're rolling with it, right? Like hostile holiday, eventually it was an in your house, and then it just became a yearly thing. So I dropped in your house, and then eventually we just dropped the whole in your house thing altogether, like WWE did. A few like Armageddon always had the same rip off WWE, kind of rune style A's and something going on there. The big ones: WrestleMania, Rumble, SummerSlam, blah 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 blah. But yes, if it was one of those, like, what am I gonna do with the fully loaded logo this year? What am I gonna do with the Fall Brawl logo this year? I don't know. I'd probably, for about a week or two at work, I'd be sketching out ideas for the next month. Just something, right? Like, could I just take last year's logo and flip the colors and ta-da? Yeah, no, but I tried to do something different. Every year you got better with graphics and different things you had at your disposal. So I tried to use that to my advantage. Like, oh, I know so much more about Photoshop this year than I did the last year. Let me try something.
It's funny you mentioned about the notebook thing, because I remember, not for graphics, but role plays. I had a notebook that I used to take to school, because that's how long ago it was that I was role playing. And I'd have a notebook, and if I got bored in class or a study hall or something like that, or something just came to me, like I'd be having a conversation with a friend and something either funny would be said or something random would happen, it would trigger something in my head, and I was like, oh, that could be really cool. To the point where I had pages full of stuff that then I eventually turned into, like, I put it on like a Word document or an Excel document, so I could keep track. And then I took them off the list, and they were more or less used in case I couldn't come up with something specific to that person that I was role playing against. I always had a backup of like, hey, I've already got an idea in place that'll work if I can't come up with anything even more original than that. It was always something that I like had going, to the point where even today, there are times where I have either conversations with my friends or when we're doing the podcast with my buddies and we're talking the shit about stuff. I have certain moments where I was like, oh, that would be such a cool scene to write in a role play, or that would be such a cool thing to say in a role play, and hopefully people read it and laugh about it, or think about it, or whatever it is. I still have those moments to today where I go, oh, that would be cool to write about, or that would be cool to set up. That's probably never going away. I think that's always going to be ingrained in me, seeing as it's been, if we shut down in 15, it's been 9 years. And it's still going to today, where those things pop in my head. I don't know do you have something similar with that, with either cool things from your job or just online that you've seen other people do that you wonder, or not wonder, but think, oh, if this was around back then, I could have done X, Y, Z.
I mean, yes, because it's like I'm playing games and I'm working on like a little side project, right? Like, and it's making a website to do some stuff for one of the games I'm playing in, and I ended up setting up a site locally on my massive amount of computers I have in my basement because I've got issues. Totally different subject. And I ended up making a site, and the tools built in to make a site that has logins, name, password, two-factor authentication, and then you can use that information throughout. Setting that up took me about 8 hours of, like, I have nothing to look. I have a login and I can update my profile, and I have a couple extra pages. Like, it went like that. And thinking back to previous, I had no idea what I was doing at all. I'm like, well, got to figure out something. And it's just the amount of tools, not just, I mean, and that's through my job too, right? Like over the years, dealing with websites and doing stuff with work, you just introduce the tools and concepts and things that you either would have had to go to school about or been in the field to know that they were a thing. And just thinking back to like, man, if this kind of stuff was around, it would have been so much easier to get not just more admin things, but more tracking, and would have made things just that hair easier that it might have taken a lot of that manual garbage that we had to do. It's like, oh, this stuff isn't hard. It just takes me, it takes me an hour to build a pay-per-view site. Maybe I could have done that in like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? Like, click a button to say build new site because it's all database driven now. Right? I don't need 3,000 PHP files to build a pay-per-view site. I just need a button, which then creates a link, which then renders a standard layout that I have built previously. And I can fill in the details on some admin page and go, done.
What year did we add? I know it was because you got the letter from WWE. What year was that? Do we remember?
I want to say, yeah, I was going to say very early 2000s if I had to guess.
So between when you created that, let's call it 02, and then now it's 2024. So 22 years in between making your admin page for GWF to making this new admin page. That was a lot of time.
And let's not remember we are talking about computers and technology here, which just goes like this.
Yeah.
It's parabolic every time there's something new released. I mean, the concept of the phones we have in our pockets didn't exist at all at the time. Like, it's insane to think that what was iPhone 2006? I was gonna say like 8.
Yeah, somewhere in there, mid to late 2000s.
I'm gonna have to Google it right first.
But that wasn't really a thing back then either.
2007. It was officially announced in 2007, released in later 2007. So 2007. So we're talking, another, from when we were talking in the 2000s, or let's say 2000 exactly. It was 7 years before you were talking, an iPhone exists. I would never have I would never have considered mobile layout, right? Like, oh, how would I access the GIF? Well, you're gonna open the GWF on your phone and it's just gonna be crap because it's not designed for mobile. Now all that stuff is so easy to do. I don't want to say easy, but it's there's layouts, there's styles. You can use things to make that. Yep, you're building your layout and it dynamically adjusts, and as long as you know what you're doing, it will look presentable. And holy crap, that was we were using freaking Macromedia Flash, right? Like, that does not exist anymore. That is dead.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a thing. I mean, technology's crazy like that, right? But like I said, I think the switch to the logins would only because I've been doing that side project for, I don't know, maybe the last month, we'll say. And I was like, oh, I almost had flashbacks. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm like, oh no, I need to make something where people can log in. I'm like, oh boy, I've been down this road before. And I did it. And I'm like, son of a bitch, that was so freaking painless because it's just built in. And I click a few buttons in Visual Studio and I was like, what? Oh,
gotta love technology.
It's great that way. It did. It's funny that we're talking about this because that was the first thing I thought. I'm like, God, I've been down this road before. I don't know if I want to deal with this. But the fact that it's one-stop shop, you click and you're done, essentially. It's like, God damn, like, oh, I could do this again. No.
I'm
No.
still hearing. You've said it like 3 times now. Yes,
I
you
know,
followed
right?
up with no, but you're like, I could.
The tools are there.
The tools are there. We are
That's
old men at this point, though.
holy cow. And yeah, that's to me, that was a takeaway. It's like I'm just kind of clicking around through graphics. I'm like, yeah, no, I remember. Oh God, I remember making this one. Oh, yep, I remember making this one. And it's funny because then I never really actually thought about like, oh, building those admin pages. I built them out of necessity. And it was just like, I'm gonna sit here one night and I need an admin page to do X. Well, make it happen. And that's how they all eventually got built one night at a time. Just, oh, I
I
need to
still
do this.
remember talking to you after you had left, and I had basically taken over, and it had been however many years. And like, I don't think I had talked to you for 2 or 3 years, because we were just running the site. And then I remember coming to you about something, and you're being like, "Can't believe this is still working. Like, how is this still working and hasn't fallen apart yet? I've done no maintenance. I've done no updates. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. Like, how is this still working? How are you people still on this site right now?" Which is funny to me because I do wonder, because obviously you have it and it's still technically working. Like, if GWF had stayed the course, besides for the Flash stuff, would it still be functional? And it sounds like yes, because if you still have it and you're able to click through stuff, it sounds like it would still be mostly functional.
At a high level, yes. Huge security flaws.
Sure.
Flat out. I did not know a tenth of what I know today. When it came to security, there are some big security flaws that I probably could log in as anybody without too much of an issue. Not just because I have the database, not because passwords are stored in plain text, which is a huge no-no, but hey, what did I know? But I haven't tried it, but I'm pretty sure just without knowing anybody's password, just by knowing their email, I probably could fairly easily log in as anyone and just do stuff. So would it work? Yes. Would I advise people to use it? No.
No. It's too funny to me. I do wonder too, like, 'cause I'm sure e-feds are still a thing. Like, I know they still are. They're obviously not as prevalent as they were, or they've morphed into other things. But like, I watched WWE and they did everything with like the TikTokers and everything where they're showing their reactions and things, and they were happy about it and like seeing everything, and like they used their videos like when CM Punk came back and a bunch of other different return when The Rock came back. I wonder like if they'd even, if this was as big as it was back in the 2000, 2001, 2002 era, would they still care? Would they lean more into it? Which is what I think they should do. Like, would they be like happy that people are doing this stuff like they are with the TikTok video people where they're reacting to them watching Raw or Raw or SmackDown or pay-per-view? Would they have that, or would they just be indifferent towards it, or would another letter go out saying, "Hey, stop using our stuff"?
I'm leaning more toward the latter of having a TikTok or something is one thing, but it's also not YouTube, right? So if somebody, you see a lot, Brian Zane on Wrestling with Regret, you've seen this. Somebody, if you watch any of his stuff, you've seen the struggles he's gone through with some copyright strikes, right? And like,
yeah, I think it actually just like the whole TikTok wrestling community just got hit with a bunch of their pages getting shut down because of some of their reactions, which WWE has every right to do because it is their copyright stuff. But yes, I did see a bunch of people get shut down, but then they try to use other channels and they do other stuff. But all of them understand that what they're doing is technically illegal, and WWE has every right to do what they're doing. You're allowed to do reaction videos where it's just like this, where it's not on in the background, it's not anything. It's just, if you're just reacting to it, that's allowed. But as soon as you put up their product is where it gets into that copyright issue.
Yeah, if you want to do a Twitch live stream and you have it on, you're watching, but you're not, it's not on your screen, kosher,
Yep.
no problem. You play their audio through your mic, you might have a problem. You play their video, we have a problem.
Yeah.
So I understand there is fair use. It is a slippery slope. It just sucks to have to defend yourself against fair use. When you say, "Hey, I'm doing review," it's tough, right? There are things people can make that case if they got the resources. If it's like you and me starting a YouTube reaction channel, we might not have those resources, right? It's going to be tougher for us as just two schmoes to fight a copyright strike. So I get it. I would, if we were doing a GWF 10.0, whatever the hell it is at this point, if we were using their images of their wrestlers, part of me says you might not just have to worry about GWF or WWF or WWE at whatever they are now. You might actually have to worry about the performer, right? Because they might have a claim that is my likeness.
Yeah.
And you are using it. Please stop. And you'd be like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
So again, hiding behind a login, not only is that probably required at this point, not just for the sake of hiding what you're doing. What I did it for, I'm not gonna lie. Put a name and password in place to hide that we were using their images behind the scenes. But you need that for tracking people and resources, and you can ban people, you can track their IP address. You need to be able to people manage your site. If you can't do that day one, you're screwed. You can't just have an anonymous site anymore and trust that they went to the guest book, said my name is Ash, and then that's really Ash. So if you wanted to have something publicly exposed, say, hey, here's what we're doing, and you kind of have some of their content there, as much as they like to say, yeah, it's free exposure, it's also resources they've technically paid and or are paying for. So they're going to do their job to protect it, especially now being owned by a larger company. They will not hesitate to protect their IP.
Yeah.
I think a lot of eFeds now do the forum approach. They just have forums where you log in. I think that's most eFeds now. I haven't encountered any.
It's such
many
a weird
eFed websites.
Forums.
Very rare.
I hate them so much. I hate forums. I like the websites. Maybe I'm old school. I'm that old man on the porch shaking my fist at these young kids. I'm telling you, like that.
It's the personal touch. It's the personal touch, right? Like I can get a board host forum. Is board host still a thing? They were a thing when I was in the 2000s.
Yeah.
If there's a millennial watching, I'm sorry, you don't understand any of these terms.
I'm a millennial. What are you talking about?
I understand the term, and I'm a millennial.
Okay, maybe it's after that. What's
you
next?
Dated yourself there, sir.
I don't even know what generation I am. I'll tell you that much. I think I'm X technically, but at the tail end, so I might fall in another one. I don't even know. I'm old. Let's just
generationless. You can say.
Yeah, I have gray hair now. I am old. I don't know. I just don't find. I've seen boards and forums still today, and they're fine. I don't know if I could do it in the context of, hey, here's my entire eFed. It's just text. There's nothing personalized about it. I think, and that's what you keep. We talked about it with the GWF broad. This is why everybody wanted to clone what we had. It felt personal. It was different. I treated it. It wasn't this way. It was just a guest book on AOL at one point in time, right? It morphed into, look what the WWF is doing with their website and how it's not just information, but there's also media. It's bringing that, how we started this show, right? What is a wrestling show? It's a rock concert. It's a ballet. It's a play. It's you name it. It's everything else. It's a fireworks show. It's Oh boy, it's a whole thing. Little clippets of each wrapped together. Well, that's what their website was at the time, right? And still today is. It tried to bring all that together. Like, oh, here's videos. Oh, here's backstage clips. Here's champions information. Here's historical information. Here's today's news. Here's oh, yeah. If they could do that, I know we're fake, but why can't we make that up? Why can't we have that same information at our fingertips? Once we went away from the anonymous aspect of it and we went name and password and database driven, have all the damn data. It's on. Title reigns are in a database. Select star from. Select count from. How many title reigns did this person have? Great. It's just displaying it on a page. And that's what brought. It's not just me. You've seen the back ends, of the site as much as anybody. It's not just text on a page. It used to be. Open the page, edit the HTML, type in somebody's name, 5. 5. No, all that's automated. It's just queries, code. That's what made it best. It's because it was live. Like something didn't really get out of date because it was all linked. That took years to get there.
So I think too, it sounds like, so when you went from the AOL to the website, part of that was you being you, similar to like I am me and anal and how do I make this the best, even though it's going to take too much time. It seems like the forum way is just an easier way. We don't have to put in that effort. You just want to role play. You just want to put out the results. You don't have to go about this big other thing, which might actually, for them, I could never do it, might be better. Because then you're not worrying about all these other things for no reason that maybe only half or less than half of the people actually care about. They might not care what my record is on the roster page. They might not care about these title reigns. It's just give me the role play, who's my opponent, give me the results, and I move on to the next week.
And I'll put my accomplishments in my footer, my signature.
Yeah.
There's my accomplishments. Done.
Yeah. So they're definitely, I think that's probably easier, but I could never. I think I joined a couple back in the day, and I just was like, what's the point of going to this website? It looks so plain and boring, and the only thing that it had good on it was at the very bottom, it showed you how many people were logged in. So you could see like, oh, there's 7 of us on here right now. We're not talking to one another, but there's 7 of us on here. That was about it that for my use, but I just think it's easier. Then creating its own website, creating your own database, creating all this other stuff. That would be my guess. I have to imagine that there's some people out there as crazy as us that are still have some type of website. I have to imagine.
If I was doing it, I wouldn't do it any other way.
Definitely some websites. I definitely have seen a couple. I mean, they exist.
Okay. God, Dave's still in this. He's going to be doing this.
Well, I was. I haven't. I've been back out of it for like, I don't know, 7 or 8 months now.
Oh wow! Look at you, you little hiatus, or you?
We have an insider though. Still, that's an insider to me.
I mean, yeah. Same. For obviously,
you've been out
of it way longer than me.
Of people. One eFed. Not like I'm like in a million eFeds, right? I was just like in one for a while. But yeah. I feel like these days people are way more into the created. So, speaking of like the legal issues, right? Once you go created, it becomes much less of an issue unless you're just creating blatant ripoffs.
Sure.
Which does happen for sure. Using a rock pick base and calling them Boulder. I don't know, stupid example. But
they call them Little Pebble. But yeah, I could never get into the creative one just because you can do whatever you want, which sounds great. But if I'm doing it, I want to, try to be this person and act.
Yeah, I think
there are certain ways.
I mean, at least from how I've done it, it's like you gotta still write with some kind of real wrestler in mind, but just not. You can use someone's pick base, right? But then you can't write exactly as them. But you can write like them and just add your own modifications. I don't know. Some people are way more creative and more ambitious and create these vast like worlds for their characters and stuff. But
I think we talked about this before, like almost like if this was me today, I would have an easier time videoing it than I would writing it.
Yeah, in
I am
today's
not a
world,
good writer. But I know what, if I'm writing something, I could write the script, right? And I know in my mind what I want to see. Now, could I translate this to the camera? Well, I damn sure do my best, right? Like, that's almost where I would go with it, because I have this picture in my head of how I want to be presented, how I want, my voice to sound, or the inflections I want to make.
I guess you have to use your own picture as your pick base then, right? If that's what
Well,
you're gonna.
probably, yeah, that's fair.
so
Which is
we
I
could
guess
deep fake
is a
it.
valid thing to do.
Could
Yeah,
deep
you can
fake it.
AI it.
I've never seen so. Oh, that's true too. They have the
Put
AI
Canyon's
generated
face
video.
and my voice coming out.
Yeah, you could totally
Done.
do that. I mean, he is dead, which is problematic.
I mean, I'll try to do it respectfully,
I mean, I don't
Which
know
is
the
always
rules.
controversial, by the way, that using dead people.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know the rules of creative defense. I've never looked into it. But for this, I could also use a drawing, right? Like, in my mind, I'm like, you know what? I don't need a person. I don't need a picture of somebody. I could technically draw, almost like if you watch some of the YouTube stuff, or the documentary stuff that WWE puts out, and they show you some of the concept art
Yeah.
of the wrestlers. And it's kind of cool to see, like, oh, somebody drew this whole character before the guy even walked in the door. I'm like, I'd love to see more of these. And that's kind of how I would picture. I'd be like, maybe not to that, because they're usually pretty detailless, and it's more about the colors or the outfit, or what they're thinking, or hair or something. How the entire presentation as a whole. You can give it some style. Bill, who was our vice president for a while, Bill Smith, he is an art teacher. I'd be like, hey, Bill, you're pretty good with art. You draw something for me? And I would almost say, in the style of a comic character, right? Like, I could picture it more of a semi-realistic comic kind of style. Draw a character with these features, and then you could go back and forth, and no, but not that kind of coat. Maybe this kind of coat. You show a picture of what you want. That's how most I would picture it in my mind. And again, to me, there's just so much today that reading is interpretation. And again, I go back to the example, the one match that I will never, ever, ever, ever forget as long as I was. And I wrote it out. I thought it was great. I thought the ending made sense. And then they were pissed at me because, oh, I didn't deserve to lose. I should have won. Like, well, yeah, no, but I know, but I screwed you. I screwed you over. That's supposed to lead into the next thing we're doing, right? And then we'll come back. Again, we're talking about storytelling. Like, they didn't see the big picture of that. Technically, you lost, yes, but it was because my president character came out and caused you to lose. So now that's leading you to something with me, and then come back around in a few weeks or so, and we're doing this. It's going to be different. Days of back and forth via IM. It just didn't fall, because what I wrote and I thought was perfect was interpreted different by the person who read it.
Yeah.
And that concerns me, of like, oh, I would write this thing and I think it's awesome, but the inflections didn't come through. Like, oh, I know how I want this to be spoken. And writing that out might not come around that way. So in today's day and age of YouTube and unlisting your YouTube, you don't have to put it out for public YouTube. You just have a private link. Man, it just feels like that's the way to go. Even if we're talking at this point, deep faking a damn AI, like, holy crap.
What we did towards the end of GWF, mostly to try to make it easier for people, which I fucking hated, but was role playing via Twitter, and I hated it. So I am very curious, because obviously TikTok became huge, and like, would we have, to try to garner more interest, if GWF was still around, would we have gone like that way? Would that have been another way for us to engage with people? And especially when TikTok used to be obviously like shorter clips, similar to like Vine, but a little bit longer and better technology. Like, would we have done that instead, or given somebody the option, hey, role play, or if you want to do like an actual promo with you recording it, we'll accept that and we'll read it or we'll listen to it. I do wonder if we would have continued that way, just not even because we wanted to, because I didn't want to do Twitter, but because of the changing environment, because we thought this would be an easier way for everybody to connect.
Yeah, I mean, I think Twitter is always supposed to be it really should have been supplementary. That kind of approach, like supplementary to a character, not the main thing. It never could be the main thing. It was just obviously too constraining.
Well, yeah, because think about if you did a role play and then the
Literally
match
a character
happened,
link.
and then if you do a role play and then the match happens, and whether you win or lose, then you're on Twitter saying stuff about that, like I got screwed over. I won't stand for this. It sets up what you're going to do.
Two guys could have an argument on Twitter, and that could start a feud.
Right. That's absolutely. If we would have used it for that, I'd have been on board.
Sometimes, real life, like WWE does that.
Yes, they do it all the time. Or like with the Cody and Kevin Owens feud started with them putting themselves out in the public so the public would record them. WWE didn't have cameras back then.
That was audacious. Yeah, that was bold.
Yeah, it was great that they did that just so they knew what would happen and they knew they could continue the feud from there. So yeah,
it almost feels
it that way.
I don't think, like, to me, I remember that. I remember, like, why is the GWF on Twitter? And I think I stumbled upon it completely by accident. I'm like, what is going on? And I was confused. Like, to me, I wouldn't use the real platform. I know why. I get it. I'm not saying it was a bad move. I'd almost want to do that in-house, right? Like, you have a role play board, you have an OOC board, you have a challenge board,
we had a chat board too at one point where, yes, if I'm thinking what you're thinking, you could have turned that in where people log in as their character and use that as an internal Twitter, which would have been better.
Yeah, I could think of it. Again, I have to think back into 2004 terms of boards or whatever the heck is going on then. But yes, like an internal. I mean, you could probably give me a week and I could make a light, with a tenth of the features that Twitter has, but I could make a light Twitter board, right? Like, oh, you're limited to 300 characters. You can tag somebody, you can reply, or you can repost with a comment. Like, okay, it's not the most complicated thing in the world if I'm doing it with a very limited internal audience. Like, I don't have to go to the level that Twitter would have to. And essentially, the back end would look a lot like our boards did with a different facelift on it. And so, yeah, you would, instead of my username appearing, it would be my character name. And here's 300 characters directed at Joe Schmo number 2. Sure. And in the end, could that count as your activity? Because I know we did have like an activity, thing at some point. Like, hey, when was the last time they role played?
Yeah.
And that was public. Would that count? Sure. That would totally count toward their activity. You could have done something like that. And then it gets rid of the complete confusion of it being on actual Twitter and maybe not in Twitter today or X today. That's kind of a cesspool as it is anyways. However, at the time, it might have been a little weird.
So I was also thinking one of the reasons that we did it was because if people weren't at their computers, because obviously our website didn't look great at their, like on mobile, you could log into your Twitter app and then you could crank out a role play or a terrible version of a role play, and then that counts. And then obviously for the pay-per-views, you actually are supposed to write a role play. I think, again, that was another way for us to try to generate activity while not necessarily being on the site or in front of your computer. You could be on the crapper and write out a quick, like, hey, I'm going to kick your ass type of tweet, and then everything's fine. So again, it was trying desperately to get more people to interact. And it worked a little, but mostly I would have rather GWF die at that point before going to Twitter. Because at least we would have gone out with the regular role play things. But I also understand changing with technology. And
I mean, it was complete desperation. There's no doubt about that.
yeah. And if it would have worked, I would have been the first to admit I was wrong and been like, well, damn, we are garnering a lot of interest right now.
Kind of just kept things on the same exact, path of decimation.
Yeah, it didn't like really increase
divert at
anything.
All.
Yeah. And if anything, it made it so much more difficult to read role plays when you've got X amount of characters and people are doing like 1 of 10, and then I got to read 10 different tweets to add up to 1. And it became a mess that I'm thankful only lasted for so long, but only lasted so long because then we shut down. So I have one question before we jump into the WWE thing. I had it before, but then we got sidetracked a bunch of different things. So I'm wondering for Dave, when we were coming up, because Dennis was talking about like, oh, I added these graphics on for these people for the pay-per-view. For me, it wasn't easy to get on pay-per-view cards back when we first started, because there could only be so many and they'd have to be important. Like you'd have to be part of a feud. I took pride every time like I got to see my character on a pay-per-view thing, at least in the beginning. Back before there was 100 people on the roster, probably 60 or 70 of them really active at that point. It took a lot to get on the card if you didn't have a title. So compared to like, obviously we got a little bit longer and we were just desperate for anybody to be on a card. So the pay-per-view didn't just only have one match. But like I took pride at that point of seeing my characters on there against somebody else. Did you have anything like that when we were first starting out of like, oh, I got to see my person there. Not that you made it, but you've done something worthwhile that you've been deemed appropriate to be on a pay-per-view.
I was Intercontinental Champion for a long time. Had a lot of pay-per-view matches, but I think the first time I felt like, oh, I finally did something truly noteworthy was the WrestleMania against Steven Richards, right? With the key in the eye.
Yes.
Granted, that was a fixed outcome match, more or less, right? So it wasn't like I was proud of having won it. But it was more about the finishing off the character journey in the story there. So it was earned still, just not via a role play, but through probably many years of role plays.
So I mean, I'll say that too. I get that part of it because I've done that before where there's been a payoff of some story that I've been leading up to that I was just like, okay, I finally got to do this. Everything's worthwhile. Yay.
That being said, I mean, super early on, like I won my first title, was the Intercontinental title. I think that was the very first title I won. It was like some massive battle royal. Probably Dennis judged the match, if I'm not wrong.
No, it was Kevin McDermott.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Kevin had nothing to do with it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Because this is early 2006, maybe. So yeah, he was definitely still around. I don't know. It's different moments in time, right? But that was the first time I actually accomplished anything full stop in the Fed. I was definitely a jobber, like a straight up jobber for a couple of years.
To be fair, that's really, and I think that's what annoyed people. That's what you should be. Like if you don't know how to write, it's similar to wrestling. When you start wrestling, you should be a jobber. You don't know what you're doing.
Traditionally, right now that we have guys sign as like these big free agents sign and on top of the and so on.
But if they're free agents because they're from another company, but if you're talking about, it's very rare that you put somebody in like Kurt Angle came in and had a full ton of steam behind him. They tried to do that with Chad Stevenson, Gable Stevenson, and that has gone nowhere. They've released him. Now he's going to go look at MMA stuff. But if it comes from another promotion, like AJ Styles came in, great. He should be on top of the card. But if you've never done it before, which a lot of these writers really hadn't done it in a more professional sense, you should be a jobber and you should be okay with it. I was. You got to pay your dues and then get to the point. But everybody wanted that, hey, let's just get here. And I think part of that is the mindset. And it's probably one of the reasons that we lasted so long is because we were okay starting at the bottom and working our way up and then finally getting there and being like, okay, we've arrived. You couldn't do that. Like I go back to our first original role plays. They're not good. Like you might at the time you probably thought they were good, and they might have been better than somebody else's, but you go back and you look and you go, "The hell was I even trying to say?"
They were extremely vanilla, from what I recall.
My role plays, that's hurtful, Dave.
No,
That's very
mine I was
hurtful.
talking about. But also,
Sure, sure.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
you're course correcting.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else GWF related before we get into WWE? That's silence. Okay, we beat that dead horse a little bit. All right. So moving on to WWE, the first thing I'm going to ask, because obviously, Dennis, you just went to an event. Um, do you have a favorite moment of the event besides for just being there with your family? Because I'm sure that in and of itself was a moment, and especially with as excited as your daughter is into it, I'm sure that was like a hell of an experience in and of itself. But for the show, was there a thing, something that for you, who's been to shows, is older, been a fan forever, like, is there a moment that stood out where you're just like, damn?
I think it just ended well. So this was just after Crown Jewel. So we're this was 2 weeks ago now. So we were coming out of Crown Jewel, and the whole thing with the bloodlines is coming ahead, right? And Sami Zayn is now back in the picture. Um, they set up the start of the night that maybe he's not with them, right? It was a good in ring segment. Solo came out and said, "Oh no, Sammy's with us," and then he kicked Solo in the head. And you know what? It was just a fun way to end the night. It was like, oh, they came like they started the night where everybody was liking Sammy, and then all of a sudden he walked away, and now right back in, and you could feel that through the crowd. Everything. I'll tell you that the kids around, there was a lot more kids in the audience, and it was fun to be, feel that off of them too. I was like, this was fun. Like it was just a good moment, and luckily we had a show where the good guys came out on top in the end. It wasn't we're like last week where the new bloodline came out on top. Nope, this was OG bloodline on top, and all coming back together, and the four of them standing in the ring. And it was like that was actually fun, and just the whole night. Again, trying to take myself away from being the smart fan, right? Like, oh, I kind of know what's supposed to happen. I've seen a few rumors and trying to just forget all that, right? And just being there for the moment and seeing what's happening. It was fun. Like just start to finish, it was a fun show. Um, Obviously, seeing the rest of my family enjoy it as more than I did is wild. Um, I think my wife surprisingly had the most fun, which was I'm like, who are you? What's happening?
Where
This was
was this so many
yeah,
years ago?
like what's going on? Like okay, and then they're announcing Elimination Chamber is going to be in Toronto, which is just the other way from us. So we drove the hour to Buffalo to go to SmackDown. We might drive the hour to go to Toronto to go see Elimination Chamber. We don't know yet. We got to see how much that costs. No, I think that was the end of the night where you had all four OG Bloodline members in the ring. Um, Crowd was enjoying it. I think that was my moment. Just ending the night on a huge note like that.
I will say, and Dave, I'll ask you next about, because you've been to some events. You've been to a WrestleMania too, haven't you?
A couple, yeah. The
Yeah,
last one I went to was in
couple.
New Orleans,
Um,
which
that was WrestleMania 30.
who the hell is even on the card?
Daniel Bryan, if it's WrestleMania
Kofi.
30.
I'm gonna say Kofi won the title there,
Oh, so you're talking
or
Kofi
maybe
Mania.
not. No, it was Kofi against Daniel Bryan. I think Eric Rowan kind of emerged in that match.
Well, yeah. So if you're talking about Kofi versus Daniel Bryan, then yeah, you're talking about Kofi Mania.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, that was after
It was
WrestleMania
Nakamura against
30.
Styles. I think also.
Yeah, yeah. So when I went to WrestleMania this past year,
Hmm.
there were so many times where I as Dennis mentioned, got lost in the moment. I got to feel the experience of it without being that smark of like, oh, I know what's gonna happen,
Yeah,
or
you gotta.
it's clear this person's gonna win, or I know this person's injured, so they're definitely not gonna win. Like, there's just so many moments of suspending disbelief or just living in
Yeah,
the
I mean,
moment and feeling the crowd.
I mean, for me, I really gotta be a big fan of someone to, I think, to have that kind of, I don't know, even childlike wonder or childlike attitude about a match. Otherwise, I will like analyze it. Yeah, I gotta really be a fan of somebody to suspend that belief and stay
So
invested.
what
in it.
about Kofi versus Daniel? Did you suspend your disbelief? Did you think Kofi was
Probably
winning?
not, because I wasn't like massive fans of either guy.
Oh
Yeah.
God, Kofi Mania was a moment, man.
I
Like,
mean, yeah, I mean, I wasn't against it or anything.
well, he shouldn't have even got the shot. It's only because was it Mustafa Ali? I think it was Mustafa Ali. He got hurt, and he was supposed
That's
to have the
crazy
big
to think
moment.
that guy was going to get a title shot, considering he was more or less like a jobber in WWE.
So I don't know if he was going to get the title shot. He was supposed to have like a breakout moment in the Elimination Chamber, which might have led to a
Okay.
title shot eventually. But he got hurt, so they put Kofi in, and the crowd lost their minds when Kofi almost won.
Yeah.
And then they gave him the shot to win the title at WrestleMania, and he did, and it was huge. And it only happened because somebody got injured, which it's funny to me how many times in wrestling where they, I don't want to call it luck into something, but that's more or less what it is. Something happens that they're planning on.
Yeah.
Somebody gets hurt. Something doesn't go the way they want it to go. And then they come up with this magic. Look at everything with The Rock. It was supposed to be Rock versus Roman last year. And then because of the crowd and because of changes, it turned into what it was, which was a hell of a WrestleMania. Both main events were great. Look at when they were coming
like
back
that was
from,
easy to have to stay invested, like not be a smart about, right? Like I don't, I'm sure everyone watching that was in the moment. That main event.
you wouldn't believe how many people were in the moment during the match, and then
Yeah, like
you got
home at the show or otherwise. I mean,
John Cena coming out, The Rock coming out, The Undertaker coming out. My God, I'm surprised I had a voice after that night because we were all losing our shit. It was great.
well, at least now like the WrestleMania is two separate nights, right? Because the other
Yes.
WrestleMania I went to was the one in Bentley Stadium where Becky main evented and won the title
Yep.
against Rousey and Charlotte, who should not have been in the match.
Agreed.
And it was like a 7-8 hour show. I was exhausted. I took the bus to New York that day. You know, it's a few hours, and it was just so exhausting. Like, so at
I
least
mean,
you got the separate night, the separate days.
yeah, and even the separate days is a long ass day because you're talking about the show. The pre-show starts at like 5. The main show starts at 7, and then you're going for 4 hours. But they went long both nights at WrestleMania. Like we went till almost like 12 o'clock. So you're talking 5 straight hours of wrestling to try to keep people on this upward trend. So you don't just get to like the main event and everybody's just like, oh, I'm so dead. I just want to go home. So yeah, them moving to 2 nights is has been great for them. One night of 8 hours, even at home, let alone being there in the arena. I'm home in my house, and 7-8 hours is like, fuck, I don't care. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's a
excited
tough thing too. Like you can't. I mean, you can get up out of your seat, right? And you're walking through this massive concession area, and it's a pain in the ass. And yeah,
yeah, it's too much. But 2 nights, I love 2 nights. I thought 2 nights was great. I got to be there for the entire weekend.
well, and you did the Hall of Fame thing, which is something that I haven't ever done that. So that was
That was not
cool to go through.
great
That
after
was not good.
SmackDown, just because it was
Because it was after SmackDown, it wasn't separate.
Yeah, it was just so long, and they opened it with Paul Heyman, who was the best part of the whole thing. Paul Heyman's speech, he might have gave
Yeah,
one of the best speeches in Hall of Fame history, and
sure, and it all kind of went
started.
downhill from there, right?
Yeah, like some of the other stuff we stayed because I knew The Rock was presenting, so I want to see The Rock. We're staying anyway, but it was like another 2 hours, and most of it was shit I didn't care about.
The guy that sticks out the most to me, and I don't remember his name. I was very entertained by him, but he just kept rambling.
The old like Texan looking guy.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yes, yeah. He spent like half of it talking about God, I think.
Like nothing, none of that was planned. That guy just went out there and just winged it, for sure.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell that was planned.
All right, so let's talk about Survivor Series. This is going to air on Monday, so Survivor Series will be the following Saturday. Obviously, there's SmackDown on right now, which I'll watch later. Next week we've got Raw, which I think is already it's going to be a live Raw. I think SmackDown is pre-taped. I'm not sure if SmackDown next week is pre-taped.
I'll admit, to preface that, I rarely watch SmackDown. I watch Raw and NXT mainly.
Well, Dennis is going to take offense to that because his family is a SmackDown family.
Okay.
We are.
Raw has all the people I like, basically.
To me, if I was choosing, I probably would have watched Raw, and I catch up on Raw every now and then. But I am outvoted 2-1.
SmackDown's always been the more kid-friendly show. So.
And we're a bloodline family, apparently. So
yeah.
Well, it's because also your family came in at the end of like the bloodline where they like started turning good, not the last 7 years where they've been around.
Not the evil bloodline. Yeah.
All right. So if we're talking about Survivor Series, they've really only announced a couple matches, but obviously I'm sure there's going to be a couple more that are announced that I'll probably talk about here. So like they haven't announced Braun Breaker versus Sheamus for the IC title. I'm pretty sure that's going to get announced probably Monday. If it hasn't already been announced tonight, I don't know. But I'm sure that's going to be on Survivor Series to help fill out the card. I don't care about this match. I'm sure these two will have a good match, but I don't care about the story. I don't know. Like, obviously, they swapped the title from Braun Breaker back to Jay, back to Braun Breaker, and now he's feuding with Sheamus because I think Sheamus won the #1 contenders match or something. I don't remember now. I don't care. Do you guys have any feelings about this? Do you care about this feud, or do you just feel like it's a middling feud to try to get Braun Breaker more over, which is you need those sometimes, but
I don't know. Anytime Sheamus, no offense to the guy, but anytime he's on TV, I take it as my opportunity to go to the bathroom at this point. So
it depends who he's against. If he's against Drew McIntyre, if he's against Gunther,
sure.
I'm gonna probably watch because they always like bring the heat to one another. And those are fun, and I'm sure like they probably will a bit with Braun Breaker, but I feel like they built up Braun Breaker, and then they immediately yanked him down for the Jey Uso thing, just to immediately take away the Jey Uso thing to really lead into the War Games with the Bloodline. So it just felt like that didn't need to happen, and it took away some of his momentum, and now they have to build it back up.
I mean, you're dealing with a guy who's basically could be even world champion ready, right? But
Braun?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I don't think he should be. I still think he needs more polish. Like he's
not a huge fan of him, but like he has all the tools, I guess.
Except for the microphone work. I don't think he's good on the microphone. I think he's mid at best right now, but he needs that. He's never gone against anybody that's really challenged him on the microphone. I think he needs that. And Sheamus is fine on the microphone, but he's not going to challenge him. He needs that.
He did do something with Sammy, who's really good on the mic. But
yeah, he did. That one was decent, but I thought Sammy outshined him. But Sammy outshines a lot of people, and that's my I got to see him get to their level, and I didn't. If other people did, that's fine. I didn't see him on the same level as Sammy. Maybe it's because I'm a Sammy, high fan, but I just didn't see it in the same wavelength.
I mean, the storyline. So, God, I'm gonna really date myself, ain't I? Storylines are cyclical. I've been watching wrestling now for 35 some odd years, right? How much new is there really? And I think Braun's he's got a great look. He came out, he did a dark match after SmackDown for us. I think he got off one move and then he pretty much disappeared because that was a dark match. It was meant to send the crowd home happier. I have nothing against Braun. I think he has a great look and he could be a champion. To me, it's Goldberg, 10.0. How many times did we find this guy who's got that look, can be an absolute beast in the ring, and we're gonna send him on this path of destruction where he wipes out everybody and he's got some streak going, And then well, Sammy beat him. All right, well, there's a momentum thing. But he comes back here. He's kind of this badass again, and he's okay. I get it. Yeah, I think we're looking for that.
Yeah, it's very
something more,
super
right?
formulaic. Yeah.
But it's like, how many times am I going to compare somebody to Goldberg in my life? Too many. But
I
that's
will
what
say,
it feels like that to me. Like,
that feels like an insult to Braun Breaker, though, because Goldberg can't wrestle.
I know.
Braun is a hell of a wrestler. But I will say Goldberg can't talk on the mic that much. I like Goldberg on the mic more than I like Braun Breaker right now. And that's saying something, because I just don't care about what he's talking about. In ring, I don't think there's a quicker person in the ring that size. Like when he hits the ropes and the ring moves because of how quick he is and how big he is, it's crazy. Him doing some of the stuff that he's doing is crazy, and he can have a very good match with people, but it needs to be done a certain way. Like when he was teaming, and I know Baron Corbin has been released now, but when he was teaming with Baron Corbin in NXT, they put on some hell of good matches. But it was just the match work that I cared about. I didn't care about anything else outside of what he's doing.
And I'm not trying to compare his work to Goldberg's work, because no offense to Goldberg, but that bar is pretty low. Goldberg had his 3 moves of doom, and here we are. He was never a mat technician by any means, and Braun eclipses that. That it's more in presentation of like, here's an unbeatable badass again.
Yeah,
cool. What's for the kids that haven't seen that before? Maybe fine.
That's what they did with Roman,
who's been around, right? Well,
again, and everybody hated it.
Roman was Goldberg, 6.0, because I'm sure there were people in between there. It's okay. Here we are. Again, is it going to take Braun? Look at Roman's journey. I will always fully admit that I was sick of Roman. I'm like, okay, I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's not bad in the ring, but damn it, to go away for a while. I felt the same way about John Cena, and I have changed my mind on John Cena as well. And
agreed.
I'm probably not the only one, right?
Yep.
Cool. Here's a kid. He's presented this way. If it takes him 4 years to figure it out, I mean, if you watched any of the documentary stuff with Roman, he said he talked a lot with Heyman. He had to figure out what he wanted to be, how he wanted, and he figured it out. And he came in. As much as everybody hated that tribal chief character, it fucking worked.
I love the tribal chief character.
Great.
It was.
You hated it, but it was great. Is it going to take Braun those years to figure that out? Sure. Don't fucking force him into the world title like you did kind of. You forced Roman in that hand. Goldberg was forced that hand. Don't do it. Let him figure it out. He does have a great future if he keeps up on that. I don't, he's definitely not that old, so he's got time to figure out the character side. Yeah, again, you would hope they'd flush that in NXT, but he's showed so much promise there. Yeah, get him some time, get him in the main roster, get him with the good guys, let him learn from the best, let him figure out a character. It is today's character it? No, it's fine.
What is today's character?
That's the problem.
It's the unbeatable.
Yep, it is. We talk about it being a vanilla white meat baby face. Well, this is that unbeatable badass. I am a badass. Okay, what else are you? Everybody can turn into. I could turn on the other channel and see 3 other badasses. What are you? He's obviously got great talent, like you said. It's just the ring work is great. He's just got to find his character. Turn this badass into just that twist. Just something.
Roman Big Dog, same thing. Like,
right.
It just didn't connect like you wanted it to connect. And it fell flat more times than it succeeded. And in-ring work was good.
It got stopped and restarted a million times too.
Yes. And they always try to pick him right back up to where he was, and it just didn't. I don't know. And then it seemed like we were going to get a payoff a couple times, and then they yanked the rug too with like all the Brock stuff. I will say Roman started to turn me back at like WrestleMania 31 or 32, whichever one was with Brock and he main evented with him. Or maybe 35, 36. I don't remember which one it was. Brock and him main evented, and I expected it to be awful, and they had a hell of a match. Now, every other match that they've had after that has been almost a copy and paste. But that match is when I started to be like, okay, I have even more hope for him. But if the people in charge are still just going to be like, nope, you are this and you are only this and deal with it, it's never gonna work. So I'm glad they let him do that. Because they obviously didn't let others. They never let John Cena, and he was I heard an interview where he said he was like, he already has new trunks, he already had new other attire, he already had new music that he had already recorded. He was ready to be heel. Like they just like, hey, you're about to be heel on this date, and as they got closer to that date, was like, nope, we can't do it. Like you're gonna take a hit in all these things, merchandise, ticket sales, all this other stuff. Like we're not willing to do that, and that sucks. And I'm glad that eventually, even though it took forever, they allowed Roman to do that, and obviously it worked.
And I think again, Braun is fine, but that's the best. It's like you're not bad, but you're not main event either. You're just fine, and until he finds that something else to break him out of, fine. That's where he'll be. He's, I'm sure, in the right match, he can either elevate somebody or somebody can elevate him, and it will look like $1 million. But right now, it's just fine. And Sheamus is, again, fine. Like I was very happy when he came back and he used "Written in My Face." I miss that music, but it's gone now. So now, meh. Oh, it's just Sheamus.
I think the story that they're trying to do, it like Sheamus is not a Grand Slam champion. The only title he's missing is the IC. But if you're gonna beat it or win it, it shouldn't be off of Braun, who just won it back from Jay. Like I thought they were gonna give it to him. What was it, WrestleMania 2 years ago? Like I thought that's when they were gonna give him his flowers, so to speak, to be grand champion when he was facing Gunther. But obviously Gunther was in the middle of his however long run of being the champion. But beating somebody like Braun, who just coming off of like a loss a couple months ago, of losing the title he just won, doesn't really feel like the big send off for Sheamus.
Unless you're going to take away Braun to repackage him, right? I don't know. I don't look into these things.
I don't know how you'd repackage
but I can't.
It kind of seems like this is just who he is.
Right. Like, unless there was that plan, like, okay, we're going to take you away for a little while. For whatever reason, I'm not saying they are, but if that was the thing where, okay, you're going to just drop the title again and then go away for a little while. And what's Pritchard's phrase? Go learn a new hold and then come back. And I don't know. Again, does he come back as the same guy? Sure, maybe, possibly. I honestly think you just leave the title on him for a while. For me,
I think he holds it at least till Royal Rumble.
Yeah, just let the kid beat kids. Who cares? Let him make a big title reign. You know what was?
I guess how many opponents? You know, it makes sense. Sheamus being an opponent, this kind of veteran guy that he can beat up.
Yeah.
How many of those guys are there really? That's the question. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think,
but they're usually not in that mid card scene. Like, so they're the upper covers in the mid card scene, which is really what it should be. But how much does that add to your legacy or to your name beating those people? All right, so moving on from there, another match that's not announced is one we already talked about briefly because I thought they set it up. They have set this up beautifully, and it also seems to be the first Cody Rhodes feud that actually matters since the Roman feud, which is with Kevin Owens. And like Cody has almost been a bit of a side character in these other stories with the Bloodline, and now he's in his own one-on-one feud with Kevin Owens. And I thought they did it beautifully with having a fight, knowing fans would be there, knowing they would record, trying to make it seem like it was a shoot, and that they actually hate each other and they're fighting. And we need to see how this all plays out. I love it. I love a heel Kevin Owens. a face Kevin Owens is fine, but there's nothing better than a heel Kevin Owens. I still remember when he came into NXT the first night, had his match, got his nose busted open, and then Sami Zayn won the title that night. He came out to celebrate with Sami and then powerbombed Sami on the apron. Phenomenal. I remember where he turned on Chris Jericho. Phenomenal. So I love myself a heel Kevin Owens. He's not going to win. Like, he's not going to win the title. Cody Rhodes is going to keep it at least till WrestleMania, if not longer. But I'm happy that they're going to have this match. And I don't know if it leads to another one, which it probably should, because having a 1 month feud just feels meh. You got to should have at least 2 month feud, maybe through Royal Rumble, and then you start feuding with whoever wins the Royal Rumble if they choose you. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Like, he's clearly not going to win, but I'm happy they're having the feud.
I mean, it's been that slow burn, and that's been the best part, right? Because it started before Crown Jewel, where he's behind him and he's got the chair, he's gonna hit. No, he's just gonna hug him. Yeah. You know something's coming. It's gonna happen one of these days. And you kind of expected it in the ring to happen, and then they did this backstage,
which I loved.
Video. It's been that slow burn. It's made so much sense, just how they've just slowly built it. And yes, it hasn't been technically a multi-month feud, but it has. Right?
Yeah,
it's been his B storyline while he was helping Roman, while he was going after Gunther. Kevin's been that B storyline right behind those the whole time. So it's been that little build. So it does feel a bit rushed coming out of Crown Jewel, and it's like, here we are, like 3 weeks later. I hope it's not the payoff. I hope that's not the end of it, right? But it's been good, right? I think he needed that foil. I think as much as Cody wants to be that fighting champion and take on all comers, you really need a heel. Like, you can't just have, hey, Randy deserves a shot and he's my friend, let's go have a good match. Like, okay, that works sometimes, but you really want people in it, you gotta make them hate the other guy, because people love Cody. Holy cow, I'll tell you, crowd.
I'm very surprised about that. Like, I get it, but it reaches levels where I'm like, he is very corny, not necessarily a bad way, but he is that blue chipper.
There were times in AEW when people just thought there was no way he could ever be a babyface ever. That was basically the perception of him in AEW.
Yep. And I don't understand, like, so he came back. He's obviously been a face the entire time that he's been back. And when he came back at WrestleMania,
you mean back in WWE? You mean?
Yeah, back in WWE in WrestleMania 38, he got a huge ovation, huge. And then it's just built since then. And he got a huge ovation at WrestleMania 40 when I was there. And then when he won the title, people lost their damn minds. And I have nothing wrong with Cody. I think he's a good face of the company. I think he's a good champion. I think he's pretty good on the mic. And sometimes amazing on the mic, which is good to have, that you're not just always.
Yeah, I mean, he's very distinctive, I think.
Yes.
He stands out.
Yeah, he definitely stands out. He's got his good move set that he has, that he can switch up here and there, so he can have good matches with nearly anybody. But I just was very surprised that he's connected this much with the audience.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be somebody that I would expect to connect with the audience.
Yeah, again, I mean, people used to make fun of his babyface promos in AEW. Like, how can anyone cheer for this? This is ridiculous, and maybe he just needed bigger crowds.
Yeah, I don't know. I know obviously WWE is more kid than AEW, but it wasn't just kids that were fully behind him. It's not like a John Cena.
Oh, he has tons of adult fans. Yeah.
I mean, it might be right situation, right time. I mean, people were tired of Roman. They wanted to see him lose. It was 3.5 years. I want to watch this guy lose. Right place, right time. Right?
So it's not only that you want to see him lose, you want to see him lose to the right guy. And that felt like, who else? Look at everybody that Roman beat. he just beat everybody. So who else is there? So then you bring in this other guy from another company who's returning home as a hero, and then you build up a long feud for a year, and then you make him lose, which was devastating for a lot of people. And then you build it back up for another year, and then you look like you're pulling the title shot away from him. When that victory happened, you just felt, besides for the adulation with all the fans, you had like almost a sigh of relief that finally this is over. But it just sent, I felt like it sent Cody through a whole nother stratosphere that I don't think he ever would have obtained this if there wasn't Roman Reigns, which is what I think you were saying before, Dennis, about you need that good heel and face. And like a Cody right now, because he doesn't have a Roman, needs a Kevin Owens.
And even more than that, though, I think The Rock being there just put it so over the top. I mean,
yeah,
it's not as good without The Rock.
But if this was like a tweener versus a face, you know, if this was like, you know, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, and they're both the Harts, and yeah, it's gonna be an amazing match. You know it is. But where's the hate? Like you're gonna have a split crowd, right? Because people love Owen, people love Bret. You want to have that, just that person you need to hate. And it was, people were tired of seeing he beat Brock, you know, 5 times or whatever. Man, won't this guy lose already? Like, average fan, like smart fan is like, he's doing some great work. He deserves the title, right?
I mean, some people really thought Sammy was going to take it off him. There was no chance.
We talked about that here.
Chamber? Oh my God.
There's no damn chance in hell Sammy was winning.
I was 99.99% sure he was not winning, but they made me that 0.01% believe a couple different times.
It's like that time it's like that time they made Santino almost beat Daniel Bryan for the title. Or whatever.
I remember they was for the title because I remember Santino in the Royal Rumble, and everybody thought he was going to win the Rumble.
It was a title situation, I think. I'm pretty sure. Something, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I remember the
but similar idea is the point.
I remember the Jericho one where he won with the fast count.
Oh,
beat Triple H, but then later that night they reversed
They called it back out. Yeah, took it reverse. That was.
But the crowd. But again, people hated Triple H. Triple H, yeah. And again, you need that foil to really be the opposite. If I think you kind of see a little staleness in Cody because he's just going out. Hey, I want to defend my title against credible opponents, and hey, I'm gonna face Kevin, my friend. Okay, it's gonna be a good, but I don't hate either of these guys.
It's kind of like the long like Cena runs.
But if you have that guy that you hate or deserves the hate, right? Has earned the hate, and that really like you're not gonna have a split crowd. You're gonna have a full crowd on one side. Like that's it. Right. And I don't know if this, the Kevin Owens thing is going to do that. I think there's going to be plenty of people that like heel Kevin. So fine. But it's a start, right? I don't know what's going to start after, because holy cow, guys, we're almost entering the run to Mania after this, right? Like you got a couple, a minor card in December and then Rumble, and we're talking Mania. There's not much happening after this one. This is gonna start us in that role. I don't know is it The Rock? People gonna hate it, that sounds like a good feud to me.
Yeah, same. Is it Rock or is it Rock and Roman and they do a triple threat?
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's I like I didn't think I'd care much for Cody. I understand the AEW crowd is entirely different. I don't understand why the crowds have to be so divided and kind of uncivil toward each other. Enjoy wrestling, please. But I know the AEW crowd likes a different product than maybe the WWF is presenting. And you can see that you got guys going both ways, right? Like this guy was underused here and now he's going over here and he's going to be a better person. Great. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Everybody, look at the Cody that we got. Look at the, you're getting Hurt Business back in AEW, and like, okay, people are gonna go their different ways. They're gonna like different things, and that's cool, right? Like, watch the damn thing you like, and in this household, at least, it's been the SmackDown product with Cody, with him, doing his woes and all that fun stuff. It's just it doesn't have
Did you
to
do
be
the woe?
crazy.
Did you do the
Oh
woe?
yeah. Oh god, yes. Yes, for yeah. And it's funny because he wasn't even on the show. He showed up briefly to help Randy, who got hurt. And then he wasn't on the show at all. But he came out for a dark match with his full entrance. So of course all the kids were ecstatic. And again, it's the environment. Did I want to choose Hogan at WrestleMania 18? I didn't expect to. But there I am, chanting Hogan, Hogan, Hogan against The Rock.
Yeah.
It happened. It just the crowd mentality takes over, man. It's just something.
All right. So after that, so we go to the official matches. We'll talk about the first War Games match, which is the women's War Game match, which is Rhea, Bianca, Jade, Naomi, Io versus Liv, Raquel, Nia, Tiffany, and Candice. I'm fine that they're having a War Games match. I don't think they need it. Like, it feels like they're throwing it together because it's Survivor Series, which I was hoping we were doing away with,
Yeah, I
similar
think
to
that always happens, right? That's always
well, I was hoping it wasn't, because look at Hell in the Cell. Hell in the Cell is no longer a pay-per-view PLE. They had they had Bad Blood, and they had only one match in the Hell in the Cell, and it was a blow-off thing. So if you're gonna do War Games, like, obviously the Bloodline thing deserves a War Games. It makes sense. The Bronson Reed and Seth thing don't necessarily make sense, but everybody else within the feud, if they would have just done a 4-on-4, could have been fine. But the women's, it just feels like, hey, we want you guys on the card. You deserve to showcase your talents, and I'm sure it'll be a fine match. It's just I don't see the reason for it to put these people together. Like, obviously Nia and Tiffany have been together. That's fine.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say overall, I mean the whole storyline with Liv and Rhea has been great, I think, and she's a good heel champion, but it's definitely overstaying its welcome, right? Seems like it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, because they've been having like those other type of matches. So it hasn't just been for the world title. There was like the tag match, and then there was this match, and then there was this match. Which I get. That's the way to extend out the feud. That's what this match is going to be too. It's going to extend out their feud.
But maybe it should be more like you said, like it should be more like Punk and McIntyre, or and more spread out instead of match after match after match.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like it should be. It's if you have to watch somebody, because that's what WWE used to do all the time. They used to do like a pay-per-view, and then the next night you watch them have a rematch. Like, why am I watching this again? Unless there's a legit story reason to do it. Like, Austin lost the world title to Kane in a First Blood match. Not cashed in, but used his like automatic rematch clause to have the match the next night. That kind of makes sense, because back in those days, that you got to kind of like call your shots for like, I get my title shot, I want it now. So like that kind of made sense. But if you just have a regular match on Sunday, why are we having another one Monday? Didn't we just do this? Like, there's got to be more spaced out stuff that you're doing, but then also make those matches mean more. And the only thing that I'm interested in, because this is War Games, everybody should be destroyed. Tiffany Stratton has Money in the Bank. There's 2 champions in this War Games match. I'm very curious if they go that route. I think that they should. I think it would be a cool moment. I don't know if they will, but like, what other time are you going to have both champions probably incapacitated, even though they're on your team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely sick of the fake out cash in. I miss when people actually came out to cash in and it just happened.
Yeah,
they really overdo the fake to the point where you just expect that it won't happen now.
So it seems to be a heel thing. Anytime somebody's a heel, they always come to fake somebody out, or they come down to cash in, and then something happens, and then they can't cash in. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
should it should be a little more binding. Once you say you're going to do it, it has to happen.
Yeah, I don't have to wait for the ref to be like, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? Oh, you fell down. I guess we're not doing it." Like,
Right.
yeah, that's very dumb.
Like
I
when we
haven't had a
cashed
like
mini feds, it was happening, and that was it was very straightforward, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't had a problem with, let's just separate it from the Raw and SmackDown. Like the Rhea and Liv, again, I understand match after match. I actually haven't had a problem with it. I think it's been fine. Right. I think they're probably the top two competitors right now. You know, Rhea's obviously been in and out a couple times, you know, here for a bit, got hurt for a couple weeks, back, hurt for a couple weeks, back. I've actually been okay with how things have gone. SmackDown side, I'm actually okay with how things have gone. I'll tell you, I traditionally I haven't been one into the women's storylines. I've actually been all right with these. Like I enjoy, to the counterpoint, I enjoyed the fakes cash-ins
All of them?
because I get it, right? Because it's like you can see Nia Jax as an imposing figure, right? And she is, you know, just that bigger person on the roster, and she's going to be a force to take down. And then she wants to get that surprise of the cash in, and then the surprise is ruined. And like, oh shit. And I get it. And I've been okay with it because I think that fits the Tiffany character to me. Like a different character.
It does, but isn't she supposed to be smart? So like I could see her doing it a couple times, but like she's done it like 8 times since she's had the title.
Don't think it's been 8, but it's been a bunch. And I don't. Is she supposed to be smart? Is that? I mean, they're certainly not exactly portraying that on TV as far as her character. I'm not saying they're playing her as dumb blonde either, but I don't think she's been portrayed as anything one way or the other. I think it's neat because I think you see the other cash-ins where you could picture the two guys are out or they're hurt or they're down and they're going to cash in. And you can see most of her, if you look back at Tiffany's cashes, they're not actually after the match, they're during, right? Like, oh, the match is still ongoing. Well, you're not going to join and make it a triple threat. I mean, that happened. I think Seth did that, but both guys are pretty much toast at that point, anyways. They destroyed each other. But many times Tiffany has done it, it doesn't. It's like you're not cashing in. No, like it's obvious from what's going on. I've been okay with the storyline. It made me giggle, and that's all I asked for.
There's a chance that she cashes in during the War Games match, not after, during? I don't know how that would work, but I'm curious if they're allowed to count to 3 and then you're on the same team with the person that you just stole the title from.
I would say there's, I mean, I guess anything could be possible, right? I wouldn't expect it, so maybe it would happen. Not during the match. I think where so again, separately, I've been okay with the Raw brand and the SmackDown brand. I don't get this match. I mean, I get it from it's a War Games, a bunch of women that deserve
Is it Raw versus SmackDown?
I don't get it because it's not Raw versus SmackDown. Because we just came out of Crown Jewel where Liv and Nia were at each other every day, every week. But now, that's cool. I mean, they'll throw jabs at each other, but we're on the same team now. Okay. Like, you have both champions on the same team.
Yeah.
It almost feels like they mashed together the 4 storylines that were going on for the sake of mashing together the 4 storylines.
Like, for the sake of War Games, yes.
Yes, right. Like, so me personally, I much more would have seen something like Rhea and Io versus Liv and Raquel or something like a tag match there to not for the title, just throw another match together, whatever. And then something on the other side of, you know, Nia and Tiffany versus, I don't even think, like, to me, Bianca and Jade don't fit into this equation, really, because they've been the tag champs. They haven't, it's been Bailey and Naomi feuding with Nia and Tiffany. and Candace kind of in that mix, right? Like, to me, it almost should be like, okay, put Bailey and Naomi, the two faces, against Tiffany and Candace with Nia on the outside, and obviously going to get involved at some point. I don't know.
It just feels like a
Traditional.
showcase for the women to be in a
Yeah,
war match without
but
a story.
I just don't like. To me, the teams don't make sense.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean, yeah.
Like, I don't know where. Like, again, I don't know where Bianca and Jade come in, except that they're, friends with Naomi. Like, it almost seems like Bailey should be in there with somebody else. I'm not sure who else would fit in this picture either. But BFAB, I don't know. Insert name here. I know they got the U.S. title tournament going on for the women's now, so I guess that's taken some attention away from that. It's
Yeah.
fine. Again, these teams together on both sides just don't make sense to me, other than they are teams. Yay.
Yeah.
I have no problems with their individual storylines on their individual shows. This match as a whole just can't work in my brain. It's a one-off match that just seems like, well, why aren't Liv and Nia just going at each other during the match? Like, shouldn't that be a thing that's happening? Because didn't they just
competed at Crown Jewel.
Just fought hard, fought.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
Liv won. Should not get said about that.
I'm okay with that. I was all right with that. It's not what I expected, but I was okay with it.
I was okay with it too, but she should be upset with it. Like, she should.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Right? Like, this. I'm okay with the women having this match. I don't understand these teams. Like, just.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the problem with Crown Jewel, right? You end up having a bunch of matches that end up not meaning anything. It's a big problem with that in general.
I mean, WWE loves to make it seem like Crown Jewel and the other events over there mean something. Now, obviously,
it's
King
like
of the
winning
Ring
the Andre
did.
the Giant Battle Royal. That's what it's like.
Yeah. God, I wanted that to mean so much more than what it meant, which was nothing. I really did. I thought it was going to be like, because obviously King of the Ring was dead at that point. So I was like, okay, this is going to be their next thing, and that's how you're going to build a star. Nope. Everybody has just been mediocre to bad.
Pointless, yeah.
Yeah. It's just a reason to get people on the card, which now they don't need because it's 2 nights. Even then, technically, there's still a lot of people on the roster, but there's no need for this other big match for no reason, which is why it's usually done on SmackDown now. But even at least when it's on SmackDown right before, everybody kind of goes, okay, this is dumb. Like, we know it doesn't mean anything. I mean, Bronson Reed won this past year, and he's now in some feuds, which is good. But he didn't need the Andre the Battle Royal to put him at that spot. Like, it didn't help him in that sense, in my mind. All right, so if we move on from the ladies, the next match is the World Championship match with Gunther and Damian Priest. Obviously, Gunther won the title from Priest because of what's his face? Finn Balor. And now they're having another match. Gunther obviously beat Sammy and then just lost to Cody at Crown Jewel, and now is facing Damian Priest again. I don't care. It sounds bad. I don't care. I don't know. I mean, maybe I just don't see the reason for him to get it. Maybe because there was nobody else, because you were doing Seth in War Games and Bronson Reed in War Games. Like, they probably didn't have necessarily somebody else to go to, but
yeah, I mean, Damian's title reign was really fell flat, and I think I liked him more since he lost it and did the whole team with Rhea and all that.
Well, I think part of the reason that his thing fell flat was because it wasn't the main thing happening, because everything with Drew and
it was
Punk
it was like when anytime like when Kane was champion back in the day. That's what it was like. And
yeah, or even when Punk won the title for the first time, like, there were bigger matches that were happening that had nothing to do with him and the world title. And why am I supposed to care about this then when these other things are going on? And that's how his feud or his reign went. And then when he lost the title to Finn Balor, to Gunther because of Finn Balor. Okay, that I guess I can get behind that. And then you want him to have his like comeback arc, but he didn't really have a down thing. He lost one match, had some other matches, then won a number one contenders match. Like I figured after somebody screws you over, you have to build yourself back up so that when you get that title shot, it means something more, or you have like a bigger feud. Like, yeah, they have their past match to go off of, but I just couldn't care less.
Yeah, I haven't bought. I mean, I have nothing against Damian Priest. I think he's fine, but that's my word of the day. He's fine. Not bad, not great. He's just there, and this just feels like another match to me. That's like, yeah. Like I don't know. It almost feels like this match didn't even have to happen, really. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just, I don't know. Like I don't see them taking the belt off Gunther. So Damian just doesn't seem like the person that would even have a chance to do that. So why? I know why, but yeah, I just don't know. Like even the build up has just been kind of, it's okay.
I know it's especially sad though when you have some other stories that do have this incredible buildup. Like obviously, no one's going to be able to do the bloodline buildup because that's been building for 4 years. But even just the Cody and Kevin Owens feud that they've been doing the last few months, and they've been sprinkling seeds about it, and then finally you get the turn, and the way they did the turn with the outside with the crowd without WWE actual cameras there. Like it was something well done. This just feels like, yeah, okay, we need him to have a title defense. These people are busy. This person isn't. Let's give them the shot. They'll have a good match. It won't be anything to like write home about, but it'll be a good match, and people might tune in and enjoy it. But I just don't see. I don't see the reason. But I also don't know who the hell else I'd put him against right now. Like if everybody else is busy, what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking that too of like, well, who else would you put in this scenario? And like, it's like, well, if I was thinking ahead like 6 months ago, I could have used this spot because I knew this was going to be a dead spot anyway, because it's going to get overshadowed by the War Games match that you kind of have planned. All right, maybe this is when he faces off who's the dude he kicked out of Imperium? Yeah, would he have a chance in hell?
Kaiser, or is that the other one?
No, the other one. The one
The
that's on
other one, yeah,
SmackDown
yeah.
that became essentially a jobber right now.
Igo,
Giovanni.
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Would he have a chance? No, of course he wouldn't have it. But it's that Sammy
it would
effect,
make sense,
right? It's here's a guy who's just pissed off at him. He's gonna throw everything he's got at him. Yes, of course he's gonna lose, but at least, and it wasn't feeling like something that was just hot shotted in for the past couple weeks because I got a spot on the card. You want it? Like that's this.
Yeah,
Feels
and we know Damien's gonna lose for sure anyway, so it's the same difference. Might as well have it be interesting.
And what do you
right?
do with Damien after this? Right? Like what? Where does this go? Because is Judgment Day going to interfere again? Okay. And if they don't, well, then what's he doing? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm hoping that this is planned out, and because I'm an idiot, I don't deal with any of this. I don't want to deal with any of this. But holy crap! Like, what is next? Like, if I don't know. Like, it feels like if he just loses and loses cleanly, well, maybe he goes away for a while. I don't know.
Yeah. So what I was hoping for, which doesn't look like they're going to do because we're too close to the event, was that okay? He gets a title shot, and then Gunther just wrecks house, puts him out, puts him on the shelf. Like I would love them to do that even the night before the event, like Friday night SmackDown, day before Survivor Series. Gunther just takes him out. Granted, that's Raw, but still, that takes him out, and he's not able to compete. And then they throw in somebody else. Then you set up when Damian comes back to then have a better match of, okay, now I have something more to fight for besides the fact that I just want my title back because Finn Balor screwed me over at SummerSlam. Like Then you have Gunther saying, hey, you're not worthy of my time. I'm just going to put you down now because you're not worthy of a spot at Survivor Series. Then they could have a match at Saturday night's main event, or they could have a match at Royal Rumble, and it might mean more. It's kind of what I was hoping once Damian won the #1 contenders match. I was hoping they were going to do not just paint by numbers, which is what we're doing. We're painting by numbers, and we're going to put Gunther over, and then Damian's going to lose, and then, yeah, who the hell knows what he's going to go, where he goes from there. But at least you could have protected Damian, gave Gunther somebody else similar to who you mentioned of his former teammate, or even anybody that randomly steps up. He could have come out and been like, well, my other opponent didn't show. He's too much of a coward to come out here, even though we know he's on the shelf. And I'll challenge anybody to come out. And then you have somebody surprise, somebody from NXT, somebody from wherever. You know they're going to lose, but that gives you that, oh, damn, type of moment. And then you continue to build up Damian back of, I'm coming back for my title, not anything else. But yeah, that one's definitely felt more paint by numbers than anything else.
I almost would have rather have seen him not win a #1 contenders match. Me personally, because it's like he has that moment from SummerSlam. Like, I want my title back. Well, you had to go win a match to get. No, have him bust in the room. Have him demand. Okay, what's Adam Pearce? No, I can't just give you the match. You got to earn it. And then he makes Gunther's life a living hell, right? He doesn't cause him to lose matches, but he's out there distracting him, or he's behind the scenes. He's always in his face, and he's always around, and it builds to that. Fine, God damn it, fine. You want a match? We'll do it. Okay. Now there's some organic build here. That's like, hey, you won a match. You're next. Why? Yeah, damn right. I won the match because I want my title back. Well, yeah, but that was 2 months ago.
I'm fine sometimes with #1 contenders matches because sometimes it's usually when a feud ends and there's nothing else to go on. You need somebody to rise up. You can't just always have somebody come out and challenge you for the title and you're going to accept the challenger. I get needing to have that, but then when it's the same person that's just done it, if there's nothing else extra, it's going to fall flat.
But I'd rather have him come out and challenge and Gunther say no.
Agreed.
And say that for a month or two. Like, I beat you. No. And again, that build over the next 6 to 8 weeks could be at every corner. Priest is giving him shit backstage or pushing him around or dealing with his car, do the old school shit, right? Like, and make him break to finally give you the match. And again, do I still expect them to win? No, probably not. But it feels more that there's something there. This feels empty. Like, I don't know. Like, eh.
What about
I'm sure it'll be a fine match, but it's just meh.
What do you feel about this match? Well, I don't want to talk to you anyway, Dave. I see how it is.
How do I feel about this match? I mean, I think you guys have covered anything I would have said about it. It feels like a filler kind of title defense. Everybody knows that, he's not going to win. So kind of a throwaway. Okay,
so then let's move on to the main event, which technically could go either way, and it should only go one way, but I don't think it's going to. We have the legitimate War Games match, and we have Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Sami Zayn, a TBA that's probably going to be Seth Rollins, unfortunately, versus Solo, Jacob, Tama, Tonga, and Bronson. So I love the fact that they're doing War Games. I thought this has been set up since like May that they were going to do this. I'm still hoping The Rock gets involved because if they're bringing him back for the Rumble or they're bringing him back for the first Raw on Netflix and then they're going to have him be at WrestleMania, he probably should be involved, especially because he just showed up at not Crown, at Bad Blood, which is the only reason that CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre wasn't the main event. So, like, I'm still hoping he'd be involved. I was hoping he's going to be involved in the match, but obviously that was too much to hope for. I'm excited for the match because it should be good. Every person in the match is probably going to bring their own element to it that's going to make it exciting. I'm curious how they do the order. Who's going to start? Who's going to come in next? I think that for me will be the most fun to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to make it exciting and how they're going to produce that match to make it not as formulaic or as these other war games matches in the past. Like, how do you keep it? How do you one up it? How do you keep it going? Like, that's what I'm looking forward to. And then obviously, however the ending goes, we'll see. But Dave, what do you feel about the main event? How are you feeling about it?
So I'm going to be very honest. Could you restate the match?
Are you being sarcastic about war games?
Are you watching SmackDown?
No,
Is he
I
watching
don't.
SmackDown?
I do not watch SmackDown at all.
Okay, so can I take a timeout here?
Sure.
I would like to remind everybody that we are recording this as SmackDown just ended.
Okay.
And
What
I
happened?
happened to open my Twitter, and I'm not saying a damn thing.
But this airs on Monday. So that's fine for anybody listening, and I'm fine with it being ruined for me.
Do you want to know? Do you want me to spoil it?
I
for
mean,
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hang on. Let's
Fine.
find out
Well,
Dave.
I won't. I don't have to spoil anything. I opened my Twitter and spoil it myself.
well, let's put it this way. Does it matter for this discussion?
Yes.
Then I think it should be
I'd
spoiled.
probably just do it then.
Yeah, pull that Band-Aid.
Apparently, Paul Heyman comes out, and CM Punk is the fifth guy.
Okay, so that's what one of the things I was hoping for. There was also talk about Brock Lesnar, but I'm kind of glad that it's Punk, because I didn't know what the hell he's been doing or gonna do.
Okay, I kind of get the context now. I know what this match is.
Yeah, I get it, and I love it.
Yep.
Makes sense.
I liked this match before.
With Seth,
I got it.
It felt too formulaic.
Seth and Bronson to me were just kind of the extra pieces, right? I was actually, so before this whole conversation started, I was going to say, I understand War Games is 5-on-5, but this should have been a 4-on-4.
Agreed.
However, I understood bringing in the fifth guy because reasons. And it happened last year. I mean, I think they brought that up on Raw, where we're like, oh, you did this last year with Cody. Okay, fine. I get it. I liked the match. I thought it was like, okay. I was actually interested to see the animosity between Seth and Roman and how that was going to affect the match. And you could build it any way you want, where they're just there, they're going to do their job. But of course, they're going to cross paths at some point, and it's probably not going to be the best teamwork. Cool. And Punk's my guy. And Punk just came back. And the Heyman connection.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
Love it. Love it.
I would. There's only one thing I'd like to change. Bronson Reed should be taken out and somebody else should be put in.
And you don't think that's going to happen?
I don't think that's going to happen.
Bronson Reed is just kind of just there, right?
I don't. Well, no. Now, listen, I'll agree with you. He's probably not going to be taken out. You don't think somebody's not going to show up to Survivor Series, though?
Oh, I'm sure somebody can show up to Survivor Series. Although, who else is showing up besides for The Rock? Like, clearly, it's going to be The Rock shows up. But I don't want it to be Bronson Reed in the match because it just doesn't make sense, especially not with Seth not being in the match now. Like, it doesn't make sense for Bronson to be in there. I honestly want them to kick out Bronson and bring in Brock, even though Brock's a terrible person. It would just make sense for the story because then he's going against both Punk, Heyman, and Roman Reigns. Like, I would like that part of it and put him back as a heel. But obviously it should be The Rock. It absolutely should be The Rock.
And listen, at this point,
it could be.
I did not see that coming.
The CM Punk?
At all.
So I knew there was a possibility of it. I didn't think they were going to pull the trigger. I thought 100% it's going to be Seth.
I thought that might be a later Heyman connection thing, you know, because you had the thing where he called him last week and the disconnected or whatever the heck the thing was going on. I thought they were going to wait. I did not believe Heyman would be back yet. Save that for post Survivor Series. That's the next step. the fact that that's happening now, and there's still a week, just part of me now believes that we have not seen quite the end of this that we might have thought we have.
I hope that's true. And to be fair, I don't hope that it happens on Raw or SmackDown. I hope it happens at Survivor Series. I hope Bronson doesn't make his flight or can't cross the border because it's in Canada, or something happens and then they don't have their fifth guy. And then
To be quite honest, you know what, I would, if I had to put $20 on something happening now, I bet you Seth ends up being the fifth guy with a new bloodline.
Well, they'd have to take
I
out
could see
Bronson, but I mean that's technically possible.
I could bet I would see him going to, oh, Punk's over there and Roman's there.
Yeah.
He walks in and says, I don't like you, but I don't like them more.
Yeah, it makes a
I
lot. It's
want
definitely
in.
logical. It's definitely logical.
That would be
Again,
him being in
I'm
that
not a
match
writer.
would be a lot better than Bronson, in my opinion. He's just better in the ring, and that would be a better match overall.
I'm not a writer. I am not a psychic. But to me, that feels like what's going to happen next. Seth is going to probably take out Bronson and say maybe he goes out to Raw and he takes him out. Old school way, chair, beats him up backstage, hits him with the pipe. I don't care. Insert takeout here. And then he comes out and says, Solo, where are you? I know you're here. I want in. I want to beat the crap out of them. Because they were building to that. When Punk said, oh, I'm taking some time off, X person out was Seth right in his face.
Yeah. So if they were going to do that, I would rather Seth kick the crap out of Bronson and then Bronson's out. And then it becomes more of a mystery rather than him saying, I would rather do that. I would like that to be his rationale after the fact, like come Raw or SmackDown the next week. Him be like, they are awful and terrible, but this was worse. Like, you guys don't, everybody's on like the rose-colored glasses and don't remember Punk tearing down this company. Don't remember Cody tearing down this company. Don't remember Roman Reigns wreaking havoc for the last 3.5 years. Everybody's now just flipped. And now I'm the bad guy because I didn't want to be on your team. And like, I would like that more. And just to keep the level of intrigue, which I know they've done the last couple of years with who's going to be the person that comes out as for War Games. But I think I would like that more now, having Punk in the match. Although now, Dave, with hearing all this, because I just asked you what you felt about the main event, now the main event has changed.
Yeah, I was aware of this match, so I just had to refresh my mind. I definitely aware this match was happening. It makes sense. The whole bloodline storyline and everything. I mean, as far as the winner goes, I don't know if we're predicting it or anything, but how do you not the other team with like Punk and Roman is like a super team compared to this? I'm almost gonna say team of guys of jobbers almost. It's jobbers and Solo Sikoa, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, that is the hard part, and Solo is kind of a jobber too, but they've tried to build him up. Obviously, they had to win at Crown Jewel or this match would make no sense. I still think they need to win. That's why it needs to be.
They definitely do need to win, and maybe they, you know. So as far as this, I'm just gonna ask this: how is the winner determined in this type of match? Is it just it's not just one pin, right?
It is one pin. It's one pin after everybody is in the ring.
Okay, so I mean, why wouldn't you just pin Punk then? That would make the most sense, right?
I mean, I think that takes away.
He doesn't need, like, he's the guy who can lay down the easiest thing.
I disagree. I think Punk needs that momentum. The guy that can lay down the easiest right now is one of the Usos, Jay or Jimmy.
Oh, sure, yeah, but it also has very little impact, though. You know what I mean?
I agree. It has very little impact, but if you pin, I guess it depends who pins Punk. Because that's the other thing. Like, nobody on the other side makes sense for that. Like, Punk is in this match more or less.
It's one of those things, like, as a unit, they're powerful, but individually, you know, who stands out? You know?
I mean, I think Cody gets, if they lose, Cody gets pinned, and I think it's because of Punk.
Wait, so you're saying that Punk turns on him?
Yes, or potentially inadvertently, but I would say, I mean, they had their little moment at for the Royal Rumble when it was leading up to it. So like that's what I would say, but for it to make sense that the other team won. Like right now, I agree with you. It is a group of superheroes versus civilians, is what this match is. And yeah, it doesn't really make much sense the way it's set up right now. That's also one of the reasons why I thought Brock Lesnar, because that would even the playing field, because Brock Lesnar is worth probably 3 of the people on the other side in the sense of strength and what he can do in the ring. So it's, if nobody turns on somebody, how the hell do the civilians win?
Does Seth change that?
A bit. Seth changes it a bit, but it's still 1 superhero versus 3 superheroes, and then 2 sidekicks.
Yeah, I mean,
versus
definitely
one superhero
Bronson
and
Reed
one-
is not adding much of anything. He's just another guy. He's not.
Yeah, I
He's
know they're
just
trying to
big.
build him. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're trying to build him a little, and that's fine. You got to build people. They are really trying to build Jacob Fatu. And
Yes.
I mean, really tried to build him. So maybe this is that moment where they tried to take the next step with him. If you've watched the past stuff, he doesn't take the fall. It's either the Loa or
Yeah, I guess
even Solo takes a lot of the fall. He's taking the Superman punches and the haluva kicks and all that stuff. He's taken the brunt of everything. They're protecting Fatu. And, it's I know he's not a superstar in the eyes of accomplishments yet, but I think he is going to be.
I mean, one of the guys has to be. Otherwise, you just end up in this mess that we're in now, where it's a bunch of guys and you're not sure who really stands out. So they need to really push somebody.
I almost wish this was a traditional Survivor Series match, and then you could have him go on a run of eliminating 2 or 3 people.
Sure.
Maybe not winning the match, or maybe winning the match, being the sole survivor and winning the match. Because that did wonders for Randy Orton back in the day. Like he was a sole survivor, like 4 Survivor Series in a row and won them all. But if it was something like that where you can really showcase that, like there's just going to be spots in this match like that'll probably be really cool, but I don't know if you can build somebody just from spots without the performance behind it or the win behind it. So yeah, I'm not sure. It feels like they've painted themselves into a corner because of all the star power on one side compared to what's on the other, if they don't make any changes.
And it's not, I mean, I don't track The Rock on Instagram or know what he's got going on. It is Survivor Series to say that he doesn't show up. There's a chance, right? Like, I honestly wouldn't have expected to see him at the end of Bad Blood. Bad Blood to me felt, I mean, it was a good event, but I didn't. To me, it's not the major 4, so I didn't think he would be anywhere near that. But there he is at the end. Didn't do anything, but he did enough. I'm not saying he gets involved in Survivor Series, but it doesn't mean his music doesn't hit and he doesn't come standing out there again.
Right.
That could be enough, right? To make it look like he's calling the shots. And that's what allows the jobbers to win. Like, he doesn't have to get physically involved. He can get mentally involved.
Yeah, I guess I was hoping for more star power in the Jobber Now group. Like if it stays the way
is everyone basically assuming that Rock is going to stay heel? Is that the assumption, or
Rock is 100% staying heel for right now?
God, it works so well. How do you not?
Yeah, the
right,
heel,
but
the God, what is he called now?
Final Boss.
Final Boss is a phenomenal.
Well, I guess I should say heel, yes, but does that mean he sides with this new bloodline though? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think everything's leading up to that.
Just throw it all away and start something totally new.
He's done it before. He could also pull a double swerve where he sides with Roman only to then screw Roman.
Yeah,
they could do that, but
he could side with Solo and only to take out Solo and reclaim that bloodline.
Yes.
Right? Right. And then all of a sudden, Solo's left to pick up his own pieces, kicked out of what he thought was his.
Yes, someone's getting beat up in that new bloodline group.
There's so many facets you could go, and again, I think, yes, they're jobbers. Like, to me, I picture, hey, the Rock's music hits. He comes out, and there's Roman and Punk standing there, looking, and behind them, there's Seth. Bam. There's Fatu. Bam. It's just that distraction moment. Is it cliche at this point in wrestling? Of course it is. But it's the damn Rock, and people are gonna love it. It's gonna give the jobbers just that inch. No one's gonna like it that they win. They're not gonna care because the Rock is there. This is it. That's it.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I just want more selfishly. That's what this is. This is me being selfish. But all right, we have talked about everything. We've been talking for almost like 3.5 hours. That's normally what these things usually do. We just end up talking and rolling, and here we are. Do either one of you have anything else to say wrestling wise? We'll start with Dave. Do you have anything else WWE wise you want to say or talk or hope that happens?
No, not at the moment. I think I don't think this show is like really too open, right? To surprises aside from whatever Rock does or whoever the fifth man is.
I mean, I hope there are surprises, but I agree with you. The only two that I see is Rock and Tiffany Stratton. Like, those are the only two surprises that are on my radar to happen at Survivor Series. Whether they will or won't, those are the only two.
By the way, can Tiffany cash in for any title, or is it one or the other?
She can cash in for any woman's title.
Okay. Right, I just meant women's title, but sure, she could become be Cody, sure.
Yeah, sure.
She could wait and take out the new U.S. champion.
But that would be dumb.
Could be Braun Breaker.
I'm saying it's not dumb. I'm just saying she could.
When WWE did that for the tag titles and then for the U.S. title, when Roman was off on his 3-year hiatus while having the title, I fucking hated that so much. There's nothing I hated more. Like, the Money in the Bank is supposed to be for the world title. Like, they're just, unless, like, let's say Sheamus won it. Sheamus has never been, he's won everything. The only thing he hasn't done is been the Intercontinental Champion, and he wants to get that Grand Slam. I'm on board with that type of cash in. If you just go, I'm a mid-carder, I could take that title. Well, there's a world title over there. Sure, he doesn't show up that often, but when he does, maybe you take your shot. Maybe you don't make it, but maybe you take that fucking shot. Like, it doesn't make any sense to go for a mid-card title when you have the keys to a world title.
I'll lay this out for you. I know you're not wrong, right? So I'm not saying you're wrong. What if Candice LeRae wins the U.S. title? Tiffany turns around, cashes in on her to stay on Nia's good side. And now they are both your two-woman power trip of the women's division.
Why? Why'd you give it the world title? World title.
Because.
That's not a good reason for me. It's a world.
It'd be a decent swerve to keep them together, but
because is she ready for the world title?
Oh, I mean, I think she definitely is. I mean, she's probably better on the mic than either of the current champions. So
I mean, I agree with that. I think she's better on the mic than both the champions. In the ring, she's decent.
But granted, I don't think it makes sense to cash in on Liv, because Liv is a good champion right now and she's well positioned, and I think it does have to be. I
think both Liv and Nia are down, and then she has to make a choice, and I think she chooses to cover Nia rather than Liv.
I think that makes sense. I honestly, I've never really been a huge fan of Nia's in-ring work.
She's better now than she has been. I will say that.
I understand she is better. I will say that. However, I'm still not a fan. I'm just saying, U.S. title being shiny and new, that's different.
I would hate it. I would hate it. Hate it. They got to do what we did in
Maybe
GWF.
They're gonna they're watching your podcast. Hey, he doesn't like this. Book it.
They got to do what we did in GWF and cash in for a title of a company. Your title of president is now mine. Bam. That's what they should do.
I'm challenging. Here's my cash in for the title of GM, and then I'll book myself in a title match.
I can book myself in a title match every week. If I don't win it, I'm just gonna keep doing it. That would be pretty funny. All right. We're gonna wrap it up there. Dennis and I will be back in a couple weeks to talk about the review of the pay-per-view. Dave won't be with us; he's gonna bail. But we may have somebody else with us. Maybe the original people want to join this one. Maybe Dennis will bug them. We'll see. We'll kind of go from there. But yeah, we'll be back next week.